Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the recovery addict, and boy, do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy
They
there.
got the wrong guy, and the dog was biting him.
He roughing him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
All right, and I think just like that, let me take this off. Boom. I think we're here. So I need a quick sound check. Good morning. Good morning. Good to have you here. It was abbreviated intro there. I love the new intro. It's just a shortened version. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Just a couple things that will probably make the stream go a little better if the answer is yes on both counts. Let's see, that off and that off. I think we're good. Let's see. 5x5 says Lost Souls Paranormal. That's great. Yes and yes. Wonderful. Good to have you here. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am a recovery addict. Thank you so much for being here. I think you guys may have noticed there is a small addition. A small addition to the studio, thanks to BZ. I do have an emotional support zebra who is now with me on my microphone to help me out. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Wonderful. We have an amazing day today. An amazing day. First of all, there were some things that happened yesterday in the remaining hearing. I did not even follow the discovery hearing. Total confession. I did not have time to follow the discovery hearing. So something might have happened in that. But in the hearing about the gag order and the cameras in the courtroom, we've had a little bit of progress in that one, and it's moving forward. We've got a new date to look forward to, and I believe that new date is June 9th. So we're a couple weeks away from that new date. Let's see. I need comments pulled up over here. I'm not doing too hot on this. All right. Anyway, June 9th is that date. The judge has basically said he listened to a little bit of arguments back and forth, listened to a little bit of information, and said, hey, first of all, Associated Press, you need to tone it down. Your message right now, the letter you wrote, the fact that you went to the Supreme Court first and bypassed me, not good. Not good. That slowed the process down. That was not a good start. It's a bad look. It's like basically if you have a complaint at work and you go straight to the owner of the company, it's bad form is what it is. So we have some bad form issues there. The judge is still going to address the issues. It's going to be June 9th before he does. So that's going to be the gag order, which honestly, the victims' families want a resolution to. They want to be able to speak about this case. And also the Associated Press wants access to, some more information. And that's in the BK case. BK. Brian Koberger up in Idaho. The hearing that started this morning, yesterday morning, the arraignment in that case, if you missed that, there were a couple interesting things. First of all, he did not plead. There was no plea entered. He stood mute, which has the same effect as saying not guilty. There is zero difference between the two as far as the court's concerned moving forward. So the judge entered not guilty on his behalf on all 5 charges. I'm not sure if he just wants to say, I never said I wasn't guilty. I'm not sure. Maybe his way of just exerting a little control, saying you can't make me plead. So that's that. Okay. So anyway, so the trial in that one, also the defense said, we're not waiving our right to a speedy trial. We would like you to set the date as far out as you can and still be in the speedy trial period. So the date for BK currently, as it stands, is early October. What was the date? It was October 2nd, and they're saying it's a 6-week trial. 6-week. It's going to be. It's gonna be awesome. I love all the zebras in chat. I'm seeing a couple chat messages, and I apologize. For some reason, they're not showing up in StreamYard the way they should over here. So hold on one second. Let's see. We missed just a couple of them. Let me catch up. If anything came in before we went live, I apologize. Pauline, love this group, member for 4 months. Thank you very much. My title is in the way. Okay, I'll sort that out later. Title can live there. Let's see. Next we have NBR1 Grandma. Love this group. You all make my workday go faster. However, my productivity may be down with 2 zebras. Thank you very much, Grandma, for that. What does zebra mean? BZ sent me a zebra. I was asked early on if I could make an emoji of a zebra, and I was asked so nicely that I said, sure, I'll do that. And I made an emoji of a zebra, and then in the mailbox yesterday, this little guy showed up with a wonderful little letter authenticating him as an official emotional support zebra. It is a he, I checked. So that's a emotional support zebra that we have here. It's just a cute little stuffed animal. And it's all good. Okay, so the Brown Barn, congratulations on 3 months. Look at that. New color. Love this group so much. Brown Barn, it looks good on you. Green looks good on Brown Barn for sure. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. So that's going back to yesterday. That's what happened in BK's case. We had a trial date set, a jury trial date set. This is going to be Moscow, Idaho. I'm already toying with the idea of making a trip, and Mrs. RA is already toying with the idea of making it a family trip. Just, a month and a half vacation over in Idaho, up in the northern parts of Idaho, Washington area. Might happen. We'll see. The date, of course, is still subject to transition and changes. Anything can happen in these trials, as you know, because they do. It does. So that's where we are. I think we're going to have good news for cameras in the courtroom because we've already had them in the hearings, and that's worked well. I think if we have the cameras in the courtroom continuing, I think they're going to allow live streaming. They may not. There's not a lot of stuff that's been released. I think they'll be able to have an impartial jury. Not sure about the gag order. I think they're going to maintain that, which is sort of bad news. But once the trial starts, it's better that we have access in the trial than have no gag order and then no access to the trial. We're all here for our group therapy, says Red Pen. Do it. See some sights along the way with the fam. Stop by Yellowstone, get the iconic picture in front of Old Faithful. It's only, 6 to 8 hours away from Moscow, Idaho, because you have to sort of drive around. I guess you could go up through the mountains. October, it's a little bit chilly. It's frosty nights, probably up in northern Idaho at that time. Maybe some good fall pictures there. Anyway, lots of fun stuff there. Lots of cool things happening. Let's see if there's anything else. The audio should be working. I've got my fingers crossed. Today we have an amazing interview with Solomon Anderson, who is just an amazing individual. Whether you agree with him or not, or whether you agree with the family or not, I've really, really enjoyed speaking with Solomon and hearing him speak, as he's talked to many different people on YouTube, many different platforms, talked about the issues the family has about the case and how it went down, and he's agreed to be on here today. Who won the internet this morning? I have no clue. Zero idea. I have zero idea. And to make things even more difficult, I've actually got 2 live streams lined up. This one, and then a separate one for when we start following the case that we're going to be catching up on, because opening statements are going to start in the Family Feud case today. I believe last I heard there was one more alternate to be seated last night around, I don't know, 4:50, 4:30, somewhere around there. So it looks like they got all their jurors and probably got all their alternates seated. So that's fantastic. So it's gonna be a thing. It's gonna happen. And so we're gonna pick up on that. When we do, we'll be picking up right at the very beginning, and we'll be playing catch up. So probably 1.25, maybe even 1.5 speed, depends how fast everybody talks. And so we can catch up and hopefully be caught up to the trial by the end of the day. We might have to listen a little bit into lunch to catch up that way. But it's going to be good because we have a lot of things on the table. That being said, I need to make one tiny little change here. And say on this one, I've got to link my 2 streams together so you guys don't accidentally get lost. Oops, audio was turned off. I apologize for that. We'll need it for this. We'll need the audio on for this. Let's see if this works. Please work.
Dogface Buttercup sends her love and says this is a terrific Tuesday. She loves everyone and promises to behave while we have a guest. Rough, 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 red heart, hit the like button, please. Rough, rough.
Thank you very much, Buttercup, and Bite Me. Appreciate that as well. Hold Your Horses won the internet this morning. Thank you, Sharon. CEO of the internet has reminded me who won. Hold Your Horses. Congratulations. Being first in chat is no small thing. It is no easy feat. And it also does not come
I was kicked back.
come easily. There's a punishment. I mean, a prize attached to being first in chat, and you getting to own the internet and be responsible for everything IP related worldwide is that prize. So congratulations, Hold Your Horses, on winning being first in chat. Probably the latest in the live stream I've ever given away the internet. Here we are 11 minutes in, and I just barely gave away the internet. So it's one of those mornings, which is good. Let's see. Today's my son's 17th birthday. Don't mind me. I'll just be over here crying, says my Uber personal driver, my kid's personal Uber driver. Well, it sounds like your kid's about to become an Uber driver himself. 17. Wow. I hear what you're saying, having just had my oldest move out of the home. The kids grow up so fast. It's really, really fast. Okay, so I see a lot of questions coming in, and honestly, here's what I want to say. When Solomon joins us, he is our guest. He did not have to come on here. He does not have to be there. He does not have to subject himself to this to any treatment that he does not want to. He's agreed to be here, and I think we owe him that respect. So if you are 100% convinced in your heart of hearts that Zachariah Anderson is as guilty as sin, and the jury did everything right and there was no problems, I'd ask that you just hold that thought deep in your heart and remain sort of just observe and listen. This is not going to be the live stream where we convince someone on the other side that they are completely wrong, that their opinion was reached incorrectly, and they should reconsider all their thought processes. This is not that live stream. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to do it as best we can in the most respectful way possible. Solomon is an amazing individual. I think you'll see that. Even if you don't agree with what he says, I think you'll see that. And so let's give him the respect he deserves, and that we give each other as well on this channel. So just say that. I have changed for today only, on this live stream only, I have changed one of the settings. And I've made it so that new members who join today will not be able to chat, just because this is a topic that is, it's a hot topic. There are some strong feelings on both sides. I think that the people who have been here for at least a day, who have been a subscriber for at least a day, probably have a better idea of what sort of vibe we have here on this channel. And so I've restricted chat to people who have been a subscriber for at least a day. That's just for this live stream. I hope you understand my reasons for doing that, because it's very easy when a guest, especially a high profile guest, comes on the show for trolls to show up and try to stir the pot a little bit. So that was a decision I made with the mods. It was my decision to rest on my shoulders, so please don't take it out on the mods. The mods, I've also told them to, we're going to make sure there's no problems, but at the same time, it's the same rules we've always had. So let's just be good. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Juries have been known to be wrong. Yes, very much. And this isn't we're not arguing the facts and evidence so much as what the family is focused on. They're not focused on the minutia detail of how did they compare this type thing. They've got a broader picture of this whole event. They've got experience that did not get presented in court based on what they saw either before or during trial, obviously with the discussions with defense and everything else. And also the path forward is not to berate the jury. We'll talk about that with Solomon on when he comes on around 10. But just have that in mind. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's see. Little Miss says, can you please remind me if what that case was about? I went to the hospital right around that time and looking at some of my text. I don't trust my recall of the case. In the BK case that we were talking about first, that's the Idaho 4, the 4 college students that were murdered. In the Zachariah Anderson case, that was the death of, or it was Rosalio Gutierrez Gutierrez murder trial is what they called it, but it has some interesting facts. First of all, there's no body in the case. No body has been recovered. That it has it's been painted a lot of different ways, and I'm trying to be careful how I say this because I've been mindful of my willingness to accept a bias even in the naming of the show. If we say ex-boyfriend's jealous ex-boyfriend trial, if we use that title to describe Zachariah Anderson, while there's some factual pieces in there, he was ex-boyfriend of Sadie, and Rosario was the new boyfriend of Sadie. Throwing the word jealous in there paints a picture. And we'll talk a little bit about that as it goes on. But what the state alleges in this trial is that Zachariah Anderson was jealous of Sadie's new boyfriend and stalked, killed, and disposed of his body. That's what they allege. The jury found Zachariah guilty on those 3 charges, and the judge sentenced him to life in prison. That's where it's at. And so we'll be talking to Solomon, Zach's little brother, about that. I believe 3 years junior. Is that right? 3 years younger. Okay. And he will be joining us on stream, so we'll have his image as well. It'll be him and me side by side. And he's also going to be looking at chat. So if he sees a question there that he'd like to address, I've told him that he can go ahead and just pick up on that and ask it. So just be mindful that we've got a family member who is not accused of any crime with us. It is not the time to attack. Just I know you guys are going to do great. So. All right, let's see what time. That's going to be at 10 o'clock. So we've got about 40 minutes before he comes on. I'm changing just one thing. If you'll hold tight just for a second. On this stream, I'm trying to link this stream to my next stream. So you guys, because I have to split them up, but at the same time, I want them to be connected. So we'll set a redirect to the opening statements that way. Okay. First time I've done that. Awesome. Okay, so hopefully that'll work great. So once we're done with this segment, it'll be easier for those who just want to go back and watch the interview, that they can find this video on their own. But that starts here in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up. The Family Feud case is starting today. And by starting today, I mean the opening statement should happen today. So we're going to jump in with that as soon as the interview is over. We will be a little bit behind by an hour or so, roughly, but we're going to catch up quickly. Let's see. Lisa, this is a great question. I would love to hear what the family would have said had the judge allowed it. Let me put this on my list of questions over here. Okay. All right, so we'll take a look at that one. I've got to stop using this mouse and use this other computer. It's 2 system things driving me nuts. Okay. New comments. If I've missed any comments, please let me know. It should auto star at least super chats. I wish it would auto star the member messages as well. Okay. All right. Okay, I think we're all good. Let's see. What are your questions? What would you have to say? I will admit that one of my many failings is that when I'm interviewing a guest, A, I'm extremely nervous, and B, I do a very poor job reading chat because of how nervous I am. So if there are some questions like Lisa's question that you have now that you can give me now that I can line up to possibly include with the interview with Solomon, that would be great. Okay. I'm probably going to not go into a ton of detail about specific items of evidence. Believe it or not, I think we'll have plenty to talk about without that, but we might go that route. Brianne, today is my birthday too. I wish I was 17, but 43 is not too bad. It's close.
Addict, today is my BDAY too. Wish I was 17 again. but 43 is not too bad.
43 is not too bad. It's almost 17. It's the new 17, by the way. Happy birthday, Brianne. Thank you so much for being here on your birthday. Of all the many places you could be, this is just wonderful. Let's see. Thank you, Jenny. That's an incredible sentiment there. The trial names are very dramatic. Excited utterance. I'm going to try to rethink how I label my trials, because I think I've been guilty of that. And there may be during this interview a moment where Solomon basically calls me out and the greater YouTube environment in general, and he might have reason to do that. He might be completely justified in that. So I'm open to that. But we'll talk about that when it happens, or if it happens. Okay. Meanwhile, happy birthday! Everyone who's having a birthday. Fantastic day for a birthday. This amazing Tuesday. Let's see. I'm getting mixed messages from my phone on my computer, which is weird. I'd like to know Solomon's thoughts when he realized the judge is hearing the case was the Rittenhouse judge. There's several thoughts along that line that I'd like to explore with him if we have time. Obviously, we're not going to go into the Rittenhouse issue directly, but that the Judge Schrader has definitely been on the radar because of his other high-profile trials. So that would be an interesting thought. Thank you, Michelle, for that one. Okay. Vice's did a good job. I did watch Vice's interview with him. That was great. I think I also watched Megan Fox, who had Vice's on as well. How was camping? Keep guessing. Camping was incredibly wet the first day, like 2 inches of rain wet. But luckily here in Eastern North Carolina, the ground is sand and water drains quickly, at least in higher areas, elevations, and it dried out. We had a fantastic evening. It was dry inside our cabin, which was lighted and air conditioned, and we had excellent breakfast and just a fun day of activities. My kids loved it. They want to go back. I slept about 15 minutes collectively over the night. It was awful, but they loved it. If you, okay, there's Matthew Harris. Matthew Harris is in the chat. Thank you, Matthew, for being here. Love for any comments from the legal side as well as you guys watch this. Interview starts at 10. We've got some time. Were ZA's lawyers court appointed? No. It's my understanding that they paid for those. That Zach basically spent his life savings on his lawyers.
You will be great. We will be good.
Who said that? I love that. Jennifer Perut, thank you so much. You will be great. We will be good. I'm going to hold you to that, Jennifer. Thank you. Appreciate that. I want to know the legalities of not allowing the defendant's family to speak. I've never seen that before. Just breathe. I think we're going to find that several of these things that we saw during this trial don't have like a legal precedent for it. Obviously, we have
just subject matter jurisdiction.
Probably not in this trial, subject matter jurisdiction, but we're going to talk about different situations where. Oh, thank you, appreciate it. Just got my my mug for the day. We're going with the blue one. Can I trade you and give you my red one that still has a little water in it? Thank you. All right, so we'll do some water. I'll need a mug for sure. All righty, now we're set. Okay, legalities of not allowing the defendant's family to speak.
I'm not a camel.
I'm not a camel. Let's see. Hence, what are Solomon's thoughts on the state using ZA's daughter as a witness? I don't know how much we're going to go into that about OA.
Let no dead horse go unbeaten.
He might. I'll let him as family. I'll let him address that. That's his niece. That's Solomon's niece that we'd be talking about. But if he wants to bring that up, I'll let him. But I probably want to ask him. Thank you, Katrina, for the reminder. The laptop is dry this morning. That all these trials. Oh, this is part 2. Where's the first part of this message? Christy L. I'm looking for the first part. Did I miss it? I want to see part 2 or part 1.
I was kicked back, taking it easy.
Christy. Somebody help me out here. Where's part? Oh, there it is. Hence why Lawyer is not hopeful there will be a live stream in Idaho. The whole blow up of how attention, how streams or names, etc. Jury being scared of not needing to sequester juries. We have to be careful. Squirrel. And then part 2, that all these trials are presented unbiased. Just an example of how media portrays. Naming trials is one example. Thank you, Christy, for that one. Interesting idea. The whole idea of media covering trials is still evolving and is still fairly new. We get a oh yeah in Thal's voice. Thal, are you here, man? Good to have you here if you are. Nicole's amazing lawyer. Are you talking about was Nicole ZA's lawyer? Was her name Nicole as well? Why does that not come to my mind? What was her last name? Anybody? Nicole Muller. There it is. That's the name. Nicole Muller. The Nicole Goodman is also an amazing lawyer. Would love to know Solomon's thoughts on the defense team's performance during trial and how the jury reacted to them. I don't suppose we can ask him why he chose to go with the man bun. I don't know. I think I do think that the pulled hair back look is a more respectful appearance and more of a proper appearance. Jennifer's a lefty too. Only left-handed people are in their right minds. Are they streaming this trial? Yes, I believe they are. It should be starting this morning. We're going to pick up right after the interview with opening statements. Can we ask if ZA gets out? Well, no, we can't ask that. That would not be appropriate. Here's what I say. I will say this about Nicole. I believe that her comments in court during the sentencing were from a very strongly held position that she has come to over time of representing her
There
client,
is a reason
that
for
she
his hair.
believes-
Respect, please.
Yep. We're not gonna knock him for the man bun. Don, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about a lot of this with Solomon. It's going to be super exciting. I don't know about the brand new evidence. I've heard there might be something that's exculpatory, but I have no idea what it is. So I'll let him bring that up. Let's see. I've heard his answer to this before, but we may ask him the same question, just so you guys can hear the response. Great question. True crime shining light. Let's see. You really need to let Solomon address some of his evidence. Gypsy Moon, I want him to talk. I don't want him to just be rapid fire answering questions. I'd like this to be an opportunity where he can speak freely and not just have to. This isn't like the adversarial system in court where he's on cross-examination and he has to just answer the question I present to him. That's not what we do during an interview. So let's see. Could you please wish my better half a happy birthday today? Sharon McDonald. Sharon McDonald's better half, apparently. I don't believe that. Lesser half, maybe. Sharon is so amazing. The CEO of the internet has a better half whose birthday it is today. Happy birthday, better half. Let's see. Also, his brother may be scrolling our chat. Be kind. It could be. I don't think we should turn off chat for the interview. I think you guys can do great. Our mods are gonna, if there's a problem, and just think of it this way. If you get timed out and you thought, what did I do wrong? You probably need to take a step back. You might just be stating facts. This isn't the time to just throw facts in chat. Let's be respectful. Let's bring the questions up in a way that is a respectful manner. If you get timed out, it's temporary. It might be just for today. We'll probably unban anyone who gets banned today, but we're not going to tolerate people being rude to a guest who's come on the show. We're going to be polite to him, and he deserves the same response. How do they bring new evidence to a decided trial? Is that through an appeal? Yes. Anything that moves forward on this case is going to be through appeal. Once the jury has passed that verdict and the sentence has been issued, it has to be appealed. That's the only way forward. Up until then, there can be mistrials. There can be other ways to end things. Good morning, Cruiser Chris. Good to have you here. There was a guy here on chat who determined with timing that he couldn't have done it. He was posting about it the other day while we were watching. We'll watch for that. We just ask all the stuff be brought up in a respectful way. We don't want to be calling anyone, whether they're defendants, victims, witnesses. Saying that anyone is a liar is probably the wrong tone to be taking today. Okay, let's see. There's still things you cannot talk about because of the appeal. Yes, this is the case, WV. It's very true. We're going to talk about the things we can. Obviously, we're not going to try to pry into the things that the legal wheels are in motion on, but we'll talk about around them as much as we can, just to get a good idea of where things stand. Does he think the characterization of his brother as someone who couldn't get over the breakup of his relationship is correct? Distilled illusion. That's probably not the right topic to bring up. I mean, he knows the facts of the case and the jury's response. That's probably just not a productive thing to bring up during a guest interview. At the end of the day, none of us feel the impact of this trial as much as both families. We can have our opinions, but none of our skin is in the game the way it is for them. It's different. Mr. Upper Torso, 100%. Awesome. Listen respectfully. We can talk later. Evangeline Light, yes. When Solomon is not on, we can have some debates that maybe you can bring up some strong feelings that I think might not be appropriate directly with him present. But we're going to be respectful while he's here. Little Miss says, I don't think many of us have been in this unique position. I'd be interested in his personal feelings and emotional toll it's taken on their family. Yeah, the interesting part there is that it's not over. Unfortunately, it doesn't end. Like for many people, for maybe for some of the witnesses, once there's a verdict, they can breathe easy. But for the family, it continues. We're not going to bring up Letitia. We're going to leave her out of this. Nandi says, I just started watching this trial, having a hard time with how the prosecutor and the judge interact probably. I hope it gets better. Nandi, if you're watching the trial, I think the behavior between the prosecutor and the judge is fairly consistent throughout the trial. Whether you believe that's right or wrong is obviously up for a little interpretation. The appeals process can be explained before the interview. Will. What I can say is the appeals process is slow, where trial is fast, and you might look at this and say, well, trial took 3 years. Okay, how is that fast? Trial is fast compared to the appeals process. It is difficult, and both trial and appeals are very expensive. It is possible to have a public defender in an appellate situation where you can't afford lawyers, but a good lawyer working on an appellate case is not cheap, and it's not something that you can just type up on the weekend and file with a judge and get it done. Let's see. Yeah, we're trying not to, Gerda, we're trying not to just come out with blanket statements on things. Let's bring up constructive questions. Just to say someone's innocent or someone's a liar, that doesn't add to the conversation. We're not here to have a poll and relitigate this as a jury and find a new conclusion. So let's try to bring a constructive conversation. Mary Murphy, that's sort of what I was saying, but no, at the same time. We're not going to talk behind his back about that, but he knows where I stand. He knows I'm currently where I stand is that the jury was right based on the evidence they received, that they reached the right conclusion. But we're going to talk about that and talk about that evidence as well a little bit and the process in court. I'd be interested to know whether he displayed manipulative and narcissistic traits as a child and what his relationship with his mother was like. I've had strong feelings about this and been punished for them. Can we honestly discuss this at a later time? Yes, we can. Let's try to keep it very polite here in chat. I'd like to hear. Mostly, I'm here to listen. I want to hear what Solomon has to say. I want to hear the things that we don't know about this case and that he knows. Have you ever seen a trial where the defendant could not have people speak on their behalf? I just can't get over that. The first time I've seen that. Lori, we're going to talk about that with Solomon. I have not. I mean, I've seen trials where there were no statements made, but not where they say, okay, we're now going to have victim impact statements, and I've decided that the family members that are most affected by this person going to jail are not victims. That surprised me, and I think he's going to speak specifically about that. Our opening statements on today, yes, they are. They're going to be, we have a separate stream, but this stream is going to transition straight to that one. So you won't have to go anywhere. You just click a button on your screen and it will transition over to the opening statements. We'll get those ready for the Family Feud trial. I believe they just finished seating the jury last night. I'll have to check the tweets just to make sure they got that last alternate. They had 12 jurors and 3 alternates, and they needed 4 alternates when I stopped monitoring last night. So give me just a minute to see. Let's see. Yeah, they're set to go. So they have their 4 alternates. Okay. Good. Just reading chats here. Sorry, getting caught up. Butterfly Dana, that's an interesting question, the way you pose that. Does Solomon feel the jurors got the verdict wrong, or was the verdict right, but the prosecution was wrong? I believe I could speak for him and say that he feels that the verdict was wrong and the prosecution was wrong.
Can I pay 0.99 to chat respectfully?
Who was that? Donna, can I pay $4.99 to chat respectfully? Yes, I will have the sound turned off because it does interrupt guests and their thoughts. And although I'm used to chats and sounds and sound effects happening all the time during this, when the guest is on, we will still be seeing super chats, but the sound will be turned off, so it won't read the voice. So if you're expecting that, just know that will not happen during that time. Is there cameras for the Family Feud case? I heard there wasn't cameras. I've heard there was, and we're waiting for the final word, but it was supposed to be starting. There were no cameras for the jury selection, which happened yesterday. So if they change their mind and kick the cameras out, that leaves us in a little bit of a pickle. Creative B, I think that will come up a little bit. Solomon probably has the same personality as his brothers. So we'll see a very charismatic guy that will convince many of his brothers' innocence. I think you're going to see that. Transition never works for me. If it doesn't today, how do I get to the other live? Mayla's mom, just the same way you found this live, going to my channel and clicking on the live stream, it'll be there. Let's see. We've got a call coming in on the burner phone. We've got just a minute before Solomon's going to jump on. So let's see if we can take that.
Cruiser Chris.
Hey, Chris, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, Scott. I hope you're doing well too.
I am.
I just want to say I appreciate the fact that you're asking everybody to be respectful. And in the chat, when Zach's brother comes up, do you think an appropriate question for Solomon would be, and I'm going to run this by you before, this is why I called you on the phone and didn't do it in chat, because there's not enough characters in chat to do it. Do you think an appropriate question would be, what does he think? Because obviously he knows the answer to what happened, well, what the jury decided. So here's a question that I was thinking about. Do you think that a question could be maybe, what does he think motivated his brother to do what he did?
We could ask that, but just know that that Solomon's probably going to say what he did was nothing illegal.
Oh, okay.
So his answer is going to be, he loves his kids. That's why he went to work, type thing.
and of course, defending his brother, because
I believe Solomon will tell us that he's probably searched his heart and cannot find anything that would indicate that his brother would be capable of this.
Okay.
So
very good.
But excellent. Good to hear from you, Chris. Have yourself a great day. Can't wait to see you in chat as well during this.
Okay. Have a good day, Scott.
Yep, we'll
Thank
see you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's see. I've been trying to tell you that in the Family Feud trial, the judge smelled something funny, and now firemen are checking the courtroom. That's the holdup. They will have video. Oh, good. I'm glad they delayed it just for us. I think that's what they're doing. Somebody must have helped us out a little bit, because they are supposed to have started at 9 a.m. See, that's Illinois time, so they're not Eastern. So they start the same time our interview starts. So maybe if they get an hour delay, we'll figure it out. Does he feel his brother was set up? If so, by whom? We have to be careful here, Olga. We can ask some of these questions, but we're not. Think this through as to where the answer might be. And now we're also looking at our policy of not victim blaming or victim shaming. We're going to bring up the whole Denny issue. So yeah, we'll carefully address that. Seems like you're afraid to challenge your guest. Why, Jane? I want to hear. I'm trying to do this in the most respectful way possible. I've told him flat out that I right now believe the jury got it right. And that Zach is guilty, and that is still how I feel today. I would like him to be able to speak and speak his mind. He was not allowed to do that in court, which I thought would be the perfect time to hear the family speak and hear their side and hear a little bit about Zach that we didn't get to hear through the evidence that was presented by the state or through the defense. So I would like to hear that, and I would like that opportunity. I've already heard the one side. I can still, I've told him, I said, I don't think you're going to change my mind. I don't think you're that I'm going to look at the evidence any differently than I see it now. But at the same time, I can be a respectful host without attacking somebody. So if there's something that I feel that is being said wrong or incorrect, I'm going to call that out. We're not going to just let everything fly here. Welcome to the gallery, Donna. Good to have you here as a new member. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Good to have a courthouse by your name.
I'm disgusted at the way this situation is being used on YouTube by professionals and laypersons alike, in particular those who feel verdicts correct. Grateful that RA is managing to balance the topic. Thank you. Hands with medium light skin tone pressed together.
Ella, thank you. I will tell you that in my research for this interview, I've noticed character flaws in myself that I didn't know I had, and that's humbling, and that's having a big impact on how I handle this. It has not changed my opinion, but I want to be open. I want to say, as we sit here like a member of an extra jury pool, listening to cases, I want to think that I'm open, and I think that listening and interacting this way in this interview will be a big indicator of that. Having been in the courtroom, does he feel the DA and defense lawyers' back and forth arguments may have distracted the jurors? We're gonna talk a little bit about that in a little different direction, girl in Texas, because the jurors got to see a lot in this trial, a whole lot that we'll talk about, and maybe that was or was not appropriate. I would ask what always brings him back to not guilty, even if the guilty camp make good arguments. What can't he agree with, or is there's not enough evidence?
I'm not a cat.
Has CA said what his side of the story is and why he is innocent? Sorry if I just missed it.
Savannah, the ZA in his statements when he was sentenced, immediately prior to being sentenced, the judge spoke with him, or allowed him to speak, and he said, I'm not going to talk about the facts of the case, although there are a lot of unanswered questions on both sides. And I think what he was getting at, what he hinted at and didn't come out and say, was that clearly defense says, hey, there was more that could have been done. There's more investigation. You guys picked who was going to be guilty and put blinders on and ran with it. That's from the defense side. That's what they're saying. From the state side, what Zach was pointing out was that in the closing arguments, how many times did you hear the word maybe? How many times did the attorney Gravely say during this trial that he didn't know what happened, and he's just sort of guessing it could have been this, could have been that, and Zach saying it could have been someone else. Look at, there's nothing. My DNA is not at the crime scene. He says I've never met this guy. He says I didn't stalk this person. He's saying all this stuff could have been fabricated evidence against me. It's circumstantial. It possibly is not me. I think that's why what he's getting at, why he's saying he's innocent. But it's a weird position to be in, as he brought up. He said, I don't know what to do here, because I don't know what this is. I'm innocent of this. How do I prove my innocence? Especially when some of the evidence they wanted to bring up to prove that innocence was not allowed in. Selena K. Armitage, excited to be here a month. Wonderful to have a new Kohler Courthouse by your name, Selena. Welcome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay. Let's see. I'm in no way affiliated with this case, says Bitter Know Your Worth. I actually watched with all of you, but I didn't see where there was enough evidence to say he was guilty. It's innocent unless proven guilty. I like how you say unless here. Matthew Harris would approve of that term. So many people say until, hinting that it's an inevitable result. But guilt is has to be proven. There's a presumption of innocence. Good morning, Tommy. Good to have you here. No one wants to think their family member could be a murderer, but all murderers have a family. Let's see, someone's smoking in the boys' room. That was the other trial. That was Letitia's. Excited utterance. I recollect this fact differently. I don't know how else to say that. It is my recollection from testimony that the DNA was a solid match. And someone can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but the DNA in the van was they could not say it was blood, but the DNA was a strong match to the victim. But it could be either tissue or blood. Let's see. Isn't it the state's job to prove guilt, not the defendant's job to prove innocence? Right. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the shifting the burden of proof. That's going to come up. Matthew Harris does approve. It presumes something will happen at some point. Solomon will correct me. Okay, sounds good. I appreciate that excited utterance. And I have to say again, thank you to those who are in chat who helped facilitate this this interview. I'm really excited to talk to him. I'm really excited to learn a little bit and hear what he has to say. See, I'm getting mixed sizes. It was not confirmed as blood. I know that. But other people, we might have to go back and find that. They played language games. Let's see. Okay. All y'all youngsters push the like button. Thank you, Ricky. Couldn't be ruled out as his, but it was too small of a sample and was also not confirmed to be blood. Alyssa, we'll have to find that testimony, because I have like a firm recollection that the testimony was that the spot was tested for DNA. There was just enough. They could either test for DNA or they could test for blood. It was my recollection that they tested it for DNA. So they were never able to confirm it was blood. It visually had the appearance of blood, or they felt it was consistent with blood or had a probability of being blood.
I really want to hear about the evidence that wasn't allowed in.
Nikki, I hope we get to hear some. It may be sort of vague depending on what's happening with the appeal. Miranda, thank you so much for gifting a membership. It's wonderful to let somebody else enjoy the benefits of membership at your expense. And Dawn, congratulations, you're the winner. Miranda Lee bought you that membership. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Solomon will be on StreamYard, so it'll be like
Christine
Zoom.
Young could just send a super sticker with 1.99.
Thank you, Christine. Christine, appreciate you. Appreciate the Hey You super sticker as well. They may hold it very close to the vest if they appeal. Yeah, it's not a gag order, but bringing everything out ahead of time may not help their cause. Murph's Turf, day 4 testimony. CSI evidence is about 6 hours in. Murph's Turf, thank you. Very precise. Day 4. CSI 6 hours in. Do you recall, Murph's Turf, which way that went? Am I remembering that incorrectly? RG's DNA cannot be excluded. They did prove it was Rosalio's DNA. See, we have a mix here, and this is interesting, but we'll discuss that. I'm just checking here. It looks like Solomon's able to join us right now. He's on the other side, so let me make sure I've got everything, all the buttons pushed on my side. Let's see. Big Mike, thanks for gifting a membership. I'm going to turn down the sound effects for the duration of the interview out of respect. We'll do that. And hold tight just 1 second. We're going to switch to here. Put that off. And hello, Solomon. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Wonderful. If there's any problems with the audio, we've had some on previous interviews that were a bit of a challenge, and so let me know. I'd hate to have you hear an echo all the way through the interview, as other guests put up with. Good morning and welcome to the Recovery Addict Show. It's wonderful to have you here. I honestly mean that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Same to you. I appreciate you entertaining the idea. I know that you aren't in the Prozac camp, and it's an important and interesting conversation to have with people that see the case from the other side of the aisle. I maintain that the evidence did not prove beyond reasonable doubt that he committed any of the counts, any of the 4, none of them. So people were swayed by the closing argument, and unfortunately, as David Helm had posted.
The maybes convinced them.
Somewhere between the maybes and the outright lies, misrepresentation of fact, the twisting of statements. He misrepresented the facts in the case, and Michael Gravely definitely confused the jury through the entire process of the trial, and then dumped this fantasy story about what happened, unsupported by the evidence, on them as a closing argument. And unfortunately, I believe that's a huge part of why people came to your conclusion that he that he had committed this crime, and it's disingenuous, and it's not how our legal system is supposed to work.
I agree. I've told my chat that we're honored to have you here as a guest, and I realize we disagree on this very important topic, especially especially to you as a family member. We've tried to put together a bunch of questions, but at the same time, I'd like to give you the opportunity to say, I guess to say with what we should have heard right before sentencing, when victim impact statements are normally read and we normally hear something from both sides. The judge said, no, I only listen to one side and then I make my decision. And it floored a lot of us, having just watched, the Darrell Brooks trial in the same state where victim impact statements were read on both sides. What would the family have said at that point to tell us about Zach that we didn't hear during the trial?
I mean, coming in real heavy-handed there. I can read my statement. I have it here, actually. I had it printed out. So, sorry, it's an emotional thing. So I just want to center myself for a second.
I understand. Thank you.
We want to start by extending our deepest condolences to Celia Patterson and Rosario Gutierrez's family. They did not deserve this. However, Zach is innocent and now a statistic. According to the National Registry of Exoneration, 2 to 10% of convictions are wrongful, and estimated up to 230,000 inmates in prison are innocent, and exonerated innocent people have served over 25,000 years in our correctional system as of June of 2021. My brother is a good man, albeit not a perfect man, but yet still good in his heart. He prioritizes his family before himself. He got me my first job outside of working on what is now our family tree farm, and drove me to every shift and home from that shift, even through sleet, snow, or when he was vomiting uncontrollably. He taught me how to drive. He took me to the gym and helped me build my self-confidence when I was a shy teenager. He always pushed me to better myself. I could count on him to be there for me for support, advice, or to play devil's advocate, even when I didn't ask for it. He always encouraged me to think things through thoroughly and completely. Zach is drawn to people who never had a fair chance at success in life. He rented his properties out generously below market asking in order to give people a leg up, to give them a chance to save and work for a better future. He purchased Sadie's condominium when it was in foreclosure to preserve her inheritance that she received from her mother's passing. He traveled for work in brutal conditions to provide for their kids and ultimately for Sadie as well. His focus has always been on the well-being of their children, his unconventional parenting style that promotes independent problem solving and thought. He was investing time and money into fixing his home to prepare it for shared physical custody. He struggles daily with the absence of his children. The adoration of my niece in his eyes was obvious when he was finally allowed to see her here in this courtroom. Yet, so was the hurt and confusion when she referred to him as the defendant after she had been influenced by the district attorney. My niece has struggled over the last 3 years to cope with the situation that is disseminated from this tragedy. She is understandably wounded, confused, and emotionally distraught. She recently commented on April the 28th, stating, "I miss his voice," on a recording of Zach speaking of the "I love you" sign and its relevance to our family. She is not a young woman liberated from a tyrant. She is a little girl that needs her dad. The twins deserve to grow up with the love of their father, his wisdom, his support, and his adoration. Zach is largely the glue that holds our family together. He is the sibling that pushes for tradition, calls randomly to check in with us individually, and is willing to go out of his way to attend our celebrations, our birthdays, and our board game nights. He's the only one of us that can get Josh to take a break from planting trees or shearing to spend the time with the rest of the family. His absence has been and will continue to be felt at every family gathering, and D&D night. His outside the box thinking, wit, humor, and contagious laughter are missed by all of us, his family, and his friends. Convicting Zach wrongly has stolen justice from Rosario Gutierrez's family, has stolen a loving brother, father, and son from our family, has stolen a loyal friend and hardworking contributor from our community. The people that perpetrated this crime are still at large. As your final ruling in criminal cases, I implore you to do the right thing. Overturn Zach's conviction, vacate the conviction, and reopen this investigation to finally bring some real closure to the Gutierrez family.
Wow. Thank you, first of all.
You're welcome.
I can hear the emotion in your voice as you're sharing that. I told you before you came on that I'm on the other camp, right? That I was on the side with the jury getting the right result. I'm also on the side of justice, and that the process has to be followed, and that the end doesn't justify the means in this. So in going back and looking, I've watched several of the interviews we've done on several of the channels and listened to some of the points that were brought up where we had a situation where decisions were made that could have impacted the outcome of this case by the judge, prosecutors. The jury was able to hear things that I was surprised. I mean, there were several points in our live stream as we covered the case from the beginning to the end, where people in chat would say, "Is the jury here for this?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, they are." And it was a surprise. There were moments like that. I mean, even the moment that was where our live stream was played in court. At the time that it was played, what I was talking about was something that I thought that the DA had done wrong, and that the judge should order the DA out of the room for this testimony. There were times like that I went back and saw over and over, that there were things that I thought, this isn't right. Do you want to speak a little bit about that and your observance as a family member?
Well, there's several issues with how the judge had treated, the case. Of course, the amount of evidence that he just accepted, Michael Gravely's words for gold, and excluded from the case, into and including the Denny motion that was filed before the case. He allowed them to claim that the evidence in the back of Zach's van was blood, even though no one had ever testified that it actually was blood. They opined that it was blood. Just so we're clear, it was their opinion that it was blood. That is not verified that it was blood. Nothing in the back of my brother's van tested positive for blood. So if you review the luminol pictures, there's not Lisa Treffinger, but one of the other technicians that processed the van had specifically said that there was no evidence of blood in the back of the van, and that included brownish red stains elsewhere in the van, on the driver's wheel, on the other side of the back wheel wells, in the rear of the van, all over the place. So if you actually go through and review the pictures from the trial, it didn't exist. So there were rulings made to taint the jury from the go by the judge in this situation. So we have some issues that we have to broach. The fact that the judge dismissed all of the character letters, and he said, "Well, I don't find value in this," and then he disparaged my sisters based on the court rubric. That alone shows his bias. I don't know how else anyone could view this, his actions in the courtroom. But when Michael Gravely made himself a witness and refused to recuse himself, it was then on the judge to make the decision. It hasn't been done since, I believe, 1978 was the last, to my knowledge, where a prosecutor was also a witness in a case. Gravely was on the witness list specifically because he inserted himself as a witness by going to a scene with a witness to change her testimony. He also conducted the interview with Munch, the jailhouse snitch, without any cameras present. Why couldn't they walk in there and do this on with a body cam? Why wasn't this done properly so it could be submitted as evidence? Why didn't they submit not a single interrogation of my brother or any other witness to the court? They didn't cover any of that. What they did was they spent 32 minutes watching my brother shop at Walmart. They didn't have evidence. They didn't have facts that actually backed up their claim. And this is a problem. It was disingenuous. I think Steve Gosney had spoken about the proper way to present DNA evidence to a court as a prosecutor. There's a handbook. There's literally an outline on how to present DNA evidence. And Michael Gravely didn't follow it. He didn't present it, which is why it was muddied by his opinion, because he inserted himself as a pseudo witness by asking all of the different types of DNA, as opposed to asking the expert, letting the expert tell you to what statistical probability this DNA evidence was relevant and was certainly a match to whomever it is, right? In this case, Rosalio Gutierrez. What they said was it was a single source mail that did not exclude Rosalio Gutierrez, that they believe was Rosalio Gutierrez, right? So that was Lisa Treffinger that stated that, I believe. If you want to roll back to her footage,
Yeah.
there's a problem with his execution of his position as a prosecutor in how they presented evidence. They intentionally presented evidence jumping from the DNA testing on my brother's clothes to the DNA testing on the front door of Mr. Gutierrez to another location. He intentionally jockeyed around to try and mix the jury up and get them to misremember the facts, where there was never any DNA evidence of my brother found at Gutierrez's home at all. Zero. None.
Right.
That included the cell phone found in the freezer. There were two alleles that did not match my brother, matter of factly, on that cell phone, which is absolutely exculpatory evidence. There's two alleles that do not match my brother. Whom do they match? You should have ruled my brother out then as the suspect, because he did not handle the phone, which they clearly believe was handled and placed in the freezer. It didn't happen. It's an imagination. It's a fallacy and a story that Michael Gravely's office had told and lied to the public. They continued to release press releases from May of 2020 up until the trial, lying to the public, talking about finding Gutierrez's clothes in burn pits at either the tree farm or my brother's home. There's the blood in the van, another example. These are issues that they continue to bring to the public to taint a jury, a potential jury that they've hammered home, to never, ever give my brother a fair chance at a trial. This included, like you had mentioned in your prep for the stream, the titles on Law and Crime and everyone else's coverage of the trial. Any juror that's going to be watching any footage of this on any platform sees obsessed ex-boyfriend murder trial, right? You've already labeled him. It's irresponsible for media to do this.
And that's what they read before they turn away and like, oh, I can't read that. Right? That's the first thing they see.
That's right. It's clickbait to try and bring people in. This is a problem. This is a real problem. My brother did not have a chance at a fair trial. He did not. It is very important for us to all responsibly look at this and think about it critically. He is not an obsessed ex-boyfriend. He is not a murderer. Matter of factly, all he did was admit to the normal human emotion of jealousy in the conversation that he had with Sadie, the one that they played in the courtroom. He was specifically fighting a custody battle during the time, which was referenced. But in a custody battle, they're trying to figure out how to try and argue with the civil court how to get placement of their children.
Well, first of all, wow, you brought up a couple things that are huge. Obviously, I'm not going to ask for names of who's arrested. I don't
find
know
it on CCAP, I'm sure, but
it's probably out there for sure. Let me back up a little bit. Why did the defense not call Gravely? Why did they not call him as a witness? Was that?
I can't get into the lawyers' heads. I mean, the question is, did they feel like they needed it? From my perspective, watching the trial, every witness that the state called to the stand, well, almost every, not every single witness. I think there were a couple of the police officers that were on the up and up, but almost every witness that the prosecution called to the stand impeached themselves. They gave disingenuous testimony. Sadie impeached herself on the stand. My niece was all over the place, emotional. She did not have, a compelling testimony. She couldn't remember that she spent, the afternoon on the Saturday before, the arrest with my sister on the tree farm, but somehow, she could remember a specific number of plants, but then couldn't remember or didn't understand what weed looked like when shown a picture of it. I mean, come on. As a jury, how are you looking at that and thinking that this girl knows exactly what's going on? That doesn't add up. It doesn't. And it actually speaks to the fact that the DA's office very specifically cited the reasoning, the rationale for preventing my brother from being able to speak to his children was that my niece was an easily manipulatable minor witness. And then Michael Gravely spent like 40 hours prepping her for her testimony. How can you say that he didn't, manicure her testimony? She clearly remembered facts that they had brought up during her testimony. Did you see how quickly she changed from being, calm and collected when speaking with Gravely to then during cross-examination, full meltdowns, full emotional outlash? She didn't know how to cope with it or how to deal with it. That is indicative of the handcrafting of a testimony by Michael Gravely. He absolutely tampered with witness testimony.
Wow. Let me ask. Let me back up just a little bit. This trial, and as we watched the opening statements, there was an objection during defense opening statements, and we thought, as viewers, outside viewers, we thought this trial is going to end before it starts. That this is going to be a mistrial. I believe that was a Denny objection, or it was objection related to a Denny argument. I don't remember the exact wording there, but it seemed like at that point that we had gone too far. The jury had heard something that they shouldn't have heard or shouldn't be considered, or according to the judge's ruling. And then the judge, I think there was a jury instruction or something, and then everything was just patched up and they moved on. And several other times during the trial, we had similar type events where it seemed like all of us lay people, viewers on the outside looking in, and even some of the legal minds that were with us watching, were screaming mistrial. Why did we not go with the mistrial? What happened there? What's your perspective on that?
I mean, I think that there's some legalese behind the scenes on why not to call mistrial at certain points. I think that there are things that the prosecution to do when based on calling a mistrial over a certain topic, but I'm not a lawyer to be able to define that for you. But specifically, the the Denny objection in the opening statements. I mean, for those of you that don't know, opening statements are not evidentiary in nature at all. They're not. They're not evidentiary. Not only that, but what was stated during the opening statements by the defense was in the discovery. This was not something new that the defense dumped on the prosecution. This was in the evidence that was presented for them to discuss in the courtroom. So it was fair game. It was never intended to be a Denny objection or a Denny objectionable piece of information. What it was a description of a suspicious line of conversation between Sadie and Rebecca Jekyll that was absolutely something to discuss, in the fact that the police did not bother to look into Sadie with these suspicious messages. They didn't bother to track her movements. They never investigated her. She was the first person on the scene. She may have been rattled by the scene. I can't say I wasn't there, but it doesn't matter. The reality is that she still had questionable messages, and as a responsible police officer, seeing that Rebecca Jekyll had texted her, it'll happen in the next week. You don't know when, how, why, or who. Like, that message, specifically within a week of the disappearance of Mr. Gutierrez, should have alerted the police to investigate her instantly. Her and Rebecca Jekyll should have been two more people for them to investigate for this crime. And I don't see why they didn't. It doesn't make sense not to.
On that same topic, I think another point you brought up many times is that there seemed to be a moment of burden shifting on this. We
More than
typically,
one.
yeah, a couple times. In this adversarial system we're in, the defense has a presumption of innocence, or should, and the prosecution has a burden of proof that they have to carry. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the different elements of each charge are met, have been proven. Can you speak a little bit about that shift of the burden and what should have happened right there? What was?
I think this is again an overarching statement to the ethics of this prosecutor. This man was willing to infer the infer to breaking my brother's constitutional rights on more than one occasion. So the right to innocence and the right to silence are very important, right? Our justice system is fundamentally constructed on the presumption of innocence, that we're not allowed to witch hunt someone, that you are presumed innocent unless the prosecution can prove that you are innocent or guilty beyond reasonable doubt. And not this person probably committed this crime, or this person likely committed this crime. This person, beyond all reasonable doubt, committed this crime. That is a tier higher than most likely, much higher. The burden of proof is necessary for us to be a civil society, for our justice system to function. We have rights in the Constitution that protect us as citizens. We have, in my brother's case, a prosecutor that's willing to break and violate his rights. In inferencing his silence, he's violated his right to silence. In the discussion of other acts evidence, he's also broken the law. In not recusing himself, he's broken ethics, not the law. But the right to silence is something that Binger had broken in the Rittenhouse trial. This is something that prosecution, that office, that DA's office, believes and then continues to disseminate through their ranks. This idea that a man that maintains his silence is guilty of a crime is not how the legal system works. A man that chose to believe that the police aren't there to help him and that they're just trying to frame him for something that he didn't do has a right to silence. Please understand this, that inferencing his silence as something that means wrong. He did it during the closing arguments. He did it during the trial. He absolutely violated my brother's rights.
So I guess that brings us to the next step, which obviously there were options up until the sentencing, and once the sentencing occurs, it sort of narrows the options a little bit. The judge could have vacated, as you mentioned in your closing, the statement that you didn't get to read. The judge could have vacated that conviction. Now that the sentence has been passed, the path forward is through the appellate system. Do you want to speak a little bit what you can about that, and what's the family doing at this point?
I sure I can. I mean, I have more to discuss with what
Oh.
people believe convinced them that my brother is guilty. I think that it's an important conversation.
We can do that as well. Let me tell you my point, where I came from, if that works, and then
Yeah.
you can answer it. I'm not trying to be controversial at any point. I am, but I'm going to tell you what what my reasoning and thought process was, and I do apologize because my memory is not as fantastic as yours, and so I'll try to share what I can, but I might leave some stuff out. For me, the issues that seemed significant were the evidence surrounding stalking. That, as far as imagery on computers, as far as the being at the different locations, the girlfriend's location, the testimony of what occurred there through OA. The DNA in the back of the van. I realized it's not blood. There was no blood found in there, but the DNA match. My understanding of that one, I understood that it was a strong match, is what I heard, is what I recall. So I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong on that, I'll admit it. I've been wrong before, and I'll probably be wrong again. But there was no smoking gun in this case. This was entirely circumstantial, which was difficult. And I found just in other cases as well that I seem to be willing to accept circumstantial evidence quicker than many. I look at it as a puzzle piece, where if I put all these pieces together, things that to me did not seem normal. It seemed out of place. Removing the carpet from the back of the van, burning clothes in the clothes pit, in the fire pit, the little DNA, the stalking. When I put that together, it's like we have the outside of a picture of a puzzle, and we're missing a couple pieces in the middle, and the pieces in the middle would be Zach being guilty of committing murder.
But it
for
could
me,
also not be
right, but
reasonable doubt.
But the surrounding pieces for me make it. I don't have to have that missing piece of the puzzle to know what goes there, is what I'm saying. So my threshold for reasonable doubt is probably lower than others. I mean, it's possible that missing puzzle piece could be an alien abduction type thing. I mean, it could fit, but it's not reasonable for me. Those were the things that I felt helped me reach my conclusion. And I realized that I'm looking at it a lot like the jury did, based on what the judge allowed or didn't allow. So my evidence, my view of the evidence is not necessarily the full scope. That obviously defense wanted to bring things in that were not brought in. The police did not investigate things that sounds like they should have looked at and would have given more information. But based on that, that's how I reached my conclusion.
I mean, those are pretty common things for people to be stuck on. The DD in the back of the van. Very important that we focus on that, because it's the one piece of evidence, the one single piece of evidence that connected the two of them, right? To ever have been potentially in the same location together, right? Aside from the night where he had peeked in the window, right? This hypothetical night where all this happened, which he admitted to, I believe, and that they discussed that he had shown up and done that, but the reality is that Gutierrez had specifically said that he would go give him a taste of his own medicine, and would frequently turn on and off his GPS location. In fact, one of the times it registered him at my brother's home while my brother was not there. So if you actually go back and review some of that GPS data, you will find that Gutierrez's location was at my brother's home for a time. The prosecution tried to explain that away, but the reality is that the threat still stood, right? Gutierrez threatened to beat my brother up and break at least one of his legs, right? This is a problem. I'm doing the same thing that Gravely did, right? This is a problem that the evidence presented that you have Sadie discussing Plan B with Rosario Gutierrez. That involved Rosario Gutierrez going to beat the living crap out of my brother. Then you have Sadie discussing an alternate plan with Rebecca Jekyll. And then her stating in response that it'll happen within the next week, right? So the question is whether or not Sadie had put 2 different hits on my brother, or if the hit that she had discussed with Rebecca Jekyll was actually for Rosalio. I mean, that's complete speculation, but the reality is that there is suspicious activity surrounding Sadie's text messages with other people. In those text messages between Sadie and Rosalio, this is the argument against stalking. Rosalio very specifically says, "I'm not worried," and threatens to go beat him up on Sadie's behalf. He's not scared. He's not in emotional distress. He's peacocking for Sadie. Very specifically. No stalking of Rosalio. That doesn't exist. He's not in emotional distress. Sadie also says that she's not scared. I forget the exact verbiage, but she very specifically said that I believe if you F with me, I'll F with you, right?
Mhm.
That statement. I'm censoring for your stream. You asked me to make it family friendly. So in this you have Sadie very specifically threatening to mess with my brother. That is she said banter when she was on the stand, but that was absolutely a threat back at him, right? Her believing that he was messing with her. Well, I'm going to give it back to you. That's not someone that's terrified. That's not someone that's under extreme emotional duress. That's someone that is manipulative as well, someone that's trying to get under his skin. So stalking is right out. You don't call someone and have them come over. You don't text them and invite them over for dinner when you believe they're stalking you. You don't send them XOXO good night Z-Bear when they're stalking you. Those things don't happen. If you believe someone is stalking you, you're not sending them hugs and kisses. You're not leading them on. You're not telling them you love them. You're not going to family events. Because on the weekend of, I believe it was May the 2nd of 2020, she came to my sister's birthday party. I believe that they left separately, but she still stayed and hung out. She spent time with our family. She was standing next to Zach. It's not like they didn't spend time together. This is what I'm talking about. We have a situation where the state has asserted that she's terrified of him, but then why is she spending all this time? That doesn't add up. That's not stalking. That's not someone who's terrified of stalking. The verbiage of the law for stalking says that they have to be in the moment terrified for their safety. Something that has
that's one of the elements
made
for the charge to be
made them
right?
emotionally distraught distraught at the time, not 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, she was not emotionally distraught, and it was evident based on her communication and her actions with my brother during that time frame. So stalking is right out. It's a hard argument to even consider criminal harassment underneath the state statute based on what the behavior was at the time. It's very important to distinguish those charges and to understand that her behavior does not point in that direction at all. It just doesn't.
So going back to, I guess what you said is the crux of the matter is the DNA. That's for many of us, that was like, it shouldn't be there. And it is. In the opening statements, if I remember correctly, we heard partially that we would hear an explanation as to why it was there, and that it was that Rosalio had come to the house and had possibly gone through the van or been in the van himself, and that could be why the DNA was there. Do we know, was that one of the things that the judge said can't come in? Was that part of the objection, or why was that not brought up in trial?
It was brought up, actually. It was referenced, and it was kind of argued back and forth because they had, I believe they had one of the, maybe it was the FBI agent that testified to the fact that sometimes when you text like an address, it'll register the address as your current position with the software that they use to follow locations. So that was argued in the case. And if you want to go back and reference that, again, you stream the whole trial, you should have it all. It's there. And that they argued that point back and forth. But I think that it also begs an important conversation about transfer DNA and how sensitive it can be. So the spot on the side of the van could just be a coincidence. So arguably, this is circumstantial evidence. Sadie was at Mr. Gutierrez's home the night before she was in the back of my brother's van. The children spent time on the couch where Mr. Gutierrez had spent time, and then were in the back of the van. Their belongings were in the back of the van. That means that wherever he went, he left DNA, transfer DNA, right? That's what happens. Your skin cells, your cellular data, right, rubs off when you shake my hand. I then handle a car door. Then your DNA and my DNA is on the car door handle.
So with the testing of that DNA, I'm trying to scratch my memory here. Go back. They said that the type of results they got from the DNA test meant that it could have been either blood or tissue, right?
Correct.
It had to be one of the two. It could not have been any other form of DNA. Right. Yeah. So that's out. So the tissue would be the touch DNA is what you're talking about, basically the skin cell.
Yeah, they said I believe that the experts had said that judging by the quality of the DNA result, that they believed that it was probably blood, but it could still be tissue.
They couldn't prove.
Yeah, and they couldn't prove one way or the other. So it was a really good specimen. So it was probably blood DNA. That's not guaranteed, right? There's still reasonable doubt in there that it could be tissue. So whether or not it was tissue or blood is still up for argument, because it could still very well be tissue DNA. She was at Gutierrez's home, right? She was handling his stuff. She was spending time with his children the night before, and then she's in the back of my brother's van handling stuff. Right. This is an issue that we have in arguing the discussion of the evidence. That you're right. It shouldn't be there. My brother doesn't know how it got there.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that that Zach did that not alleged, but that Zach did, whether it's removing the carpet from the van, burning the clothes in the fire pit, that sits with you as like that wasn't normal? Was it borrowing the boots, the chainsaw situation? I mean, is there any of that? Is all of that for you? Does that raise an alarm and think, yeah, that was a little weird? Why'd that happen at that time?
I think that you'd have to know my brother to understand how it didn't surprise me. So he's got an old farmhouse, and frankly, an old farmhouse with a roof leak. There was a closet in one of the bedrooms that had a bunch of his old clothes in it that had a roof leak. Does it surprise me that there's a bunch of burned clothes that were then saturated by a roof leak? No, not at all. That's something that he would do. He was cleaning out all the bedrooms and fixing them for the children to move in. Of course, he would have gone and cleaned out that closet. Does it surprise me that he cut the carpeting out of the back of a van that he had just loaded a bunch of construction debris in, and then had a chainsaw that spilled gasoline and oil in the back? No. Are you going to be driving around with the reek of gasoline in the back of your vehicle? No, you're not. Did it occur during this time frame? Well, yeah. The chainsaw was in the back of the van on Saturday, the 16th of May, 2020. So it occurred during that time. He had rationale for him to cut it out. There's still no evidence anywhere in the back of the van of Mr. Gutierrez ever being there, other than that splash of what is likely transfer DNA. The reason why I believe it's transfer DNA is because there was no other evidence, none that actually verified that that was something connected to this crime anywhere on any location that they investigated my brother. None. So think about this. He had to brutally murder Rosario Gutierrez by the state's timeline. We'll get to the timeline later.
Mhm.
But that means that they claimed that he bludgeoned Gutierrez and stabbed Gutierrez, right? Both, like he's like a Swiss Army knife, like he's just whipping out different weapons, or
Yeah.
he showed up with a fire axe. My brother's never owned a fire axe. So this is a problem for us to look at. This situation where he is handling a bloody dead man, or a bloody near dead man. In 10 minutes time, he wraps up this corpse totally, completely. So it's got the weight of the rug, the weight of a 270-pound man all together, and he shoulders a dead man and walks him out to the van without dragging him, without touching any door frames, without touching any doors properly. Nothing. There's no blood from this horrific display of blood in the apartment. No evidence that is then transferred anywhere else, all the way back out to this van placement that the DA alleges. Not only that, but he places a 6-foot tall, 270-pound man in a square that's roughly 3 feet by 3 feet. Right, 3 feet by maybe
It's not
3.5
wraps.
feet.
There's not many wraps of the carpet to go around them.
Right, and
Run
think
them
of the
out.
carpet actually makes him more stiff when it's rolled up. Think about bending a carpet, how difficult that is. Now imagine a body in that. You can't bend that. He's stuck in a tube position, right? He's like a cigarette rolled up, taut, in order to try and make that weight manageable. It doesn't make sense. He's not allowed. He can't fold a guy up into a 3-foot by 3-foot section. It's not going to happen. So then you have one splash where when he hypothetically puts the man down in the back of the van. Why isn't there any other splash? Why isn't there blood draining onto the bumper, blood draining onto the carpet? When the blood saturates the carpet, because this is what they allege, is that the carpet is removed because DNA evidence saturated the carpeting. If that's the case, then why isn't there any blood on any of the hardware or in any of the crevices on any of the hardware in the back of the van? Because there's none. When they test for luminol, they find no blood in any of the bolts, the rivets, any of the brackets, nothing. The van is dark. No blood evidence, nothing in there. So you have this situation where there's no evidence of there being anything other than this pinprick size spot. You also have no evidence of the cleanup. He would have had to have showered afterwards. And in showering, he would have had to get the blood out from his fingernails, from his hair potentially, and everywhere else that it would have splattered and sprayed. They tested the traps in his tub, the traps in his sinks, and the septic system. There was no DNA evidence, none of Rosario Gutierrez anywhere else. No evidence of a cleanup at all, period. None. Him burning his clothes in his fire pit, he's free to do. Him removing the carpet from the back of the van because he spilt something in the back of it is something that he would do. Absolutely. That is not abnormal behavior from my brother, especially considering that it was a beater old minivan that he was using for work.
So without like throwing specific individuals' names around, would you agree with you feel that he was set up, that this was probably intentionally done, or that the police would you say either he was set up by someone to be the fall guy, or that the police just wrongfully targeted the wrong person and then only looked to evidence that would support their hypothesis?
I think a little bit of both, right? You have Sadie taking advantage of the situation to try and win family court. They had a family court case coming up, court date coming up in about a month after the arrest date. Excuse me. So about a month after the arrest date, they were going to go to court to argue for custody and placement of the children. We have Sadie absolutely taking advantage of that situation, to try and set herself up for success in that. She had already started discussing it in text messages with Rebecca Jekyll that magically started occurring after they had decided to go to family court, after they had officially talked about setting the court date that said, I'm taking you to court. Now suddenly they're talking about stalking. It didn't happen before that. None of that conversation occurred throughout March. None of it occurred, prior to early May. So suddenly we have this conversation occurring between Sadie and Rebecca Jekyll. So she has motive for doing that, right? Then we have the police that were pointed in this direction, that put on their blinders, that decided that they were all in. They saw the missing carpet and they're like, "Oh, this is the find of a century. She said he did it, and now we found missing carpeting. We have to look into this guy." But what they didn't do is continue to investigate all other possibilities. Correa himself admitted to releasing the dump. They had no idea whether or not any evidence was dumped in that dumpster that they could have found in that dump. They should have searched it for Gutierrez's DNA. Why wouldn't they have looked for the trash? It was completely irresponsible of the Kenosha PD to release that dump site. They had it the day of. He claimed that they didn't have enough police manpower to man that search. But the dump was in Illinois. They had local jurisdiction there to aid and assist them in that search if they required it. So the local sheriff's department, the local police department, to send out their units to assist in the search of that landfill. But they didn't. He walked away from it because they found missing carpet in the back of my brother's van. And that was it. Because outside of that, they had nothing there. They found a little bit of clothes in the burn pit, and they just said, never mind. We'll just not look for evidence here. That's a huge problem. They didn't bother looking for potentially a man's body. They were negligent in their duty. Absolutely. And the Gutierrez family is now paying that, and so are we, because they decided to not do their job to their fullest extent. They specifically didn't even test the shoe tray that was turned up in front of the blood splatter on the wall next to Mr. Gutierrez's door. They didn't test or swab the door handle on the freezer once they discovered that the phone was in the freezer. I think it was May the 21st, maybe May the 24th. They didn't bother testing the coffee tables, the two small tables that were moved off to the side carefully, right? In this situation, if it was an act of passion, why then would you methodically move the tables carefully over to the side and set them over to the side in order to utilize this rug? If it was under that tight of a time constraint that they claimed that he was in that 10 to 15 minute window that they claimed that my brother committed this crime, wrapped up a corpse, stowed it in the van, and then stowed the credit cards in the freezer, how was it possible for him to not just toss the tables aside? Why would he have carefully moved it? The evidence doesn't show what the state presented. The timeline doesn't work at all. The state presumed that the murder was committed at about 10 p.m. on May the 17th. My brother had to be home by 11:19 that same night. The time to travel from Kenosha to my brother's house using the freeway at the time was an hour and like 9 minutes. How is it possible for him to have wrapped this up in about 10 minutes and commit this crime and make it all the way back to Mequon without ever being seen on any traffic camera? Not a single one. That's through the Milwaukee interchange. So that's by the airport, downtown, all the way through Milwaukee. No traffic camera, no doorbell footage, no gas station footage, no footage, zero camera evidence, none that ever placed my brother down making this trip that they allege. Not a single piece of it, not a shred of it. So we have a situation where the DA has presented an unrealistic, impossible timeline. My brother would have had to have teleported to make it back in time for this to happen, or he would have absolutely been on camera. There's no question. Then you have an unrealistic amount of time for him to have committed this crime, clean up, wrap up a corpse. You know how much time it takes to wrap up carpeting, to wrap it all up, to contain dripping blood and all this? I was a contractor for 10 years, just wrapping up carpeting, trying to maintain a mess of drywall is going to take you more time, especially with an unwieldy 270 to 300 pound weight. It's not physically possible. My brother had a bad back, has a bad back. It still aggravates him. If he were to lift a 270 to 300 pound weight, shoulder it, and walk it outside and put it in the back of his van, he would have been laid up in bed, bedbound for days without question. There's no question he would have aggravated his injury. This is not a case where they got it right. It is absolutely an incorrect verdict. The jury got it wrong.
You make a very strong argument. I'll give you that. It's an incredibly strong argument that I struggle to respond to, honestly, in the moment. The problem we're faced with right now is that it's too late for the jury to reconsider.
I know it goes to the appeal court.
And it goes to appeal. Let's talk briefly about what options are there. I mean, there are some other options if Rosalio turns up alive, and I realize that there's conspiracy theories out there. I put him out there. I believe that he's dead. I believe that there's most likely that it's most likely that he's dead.
I tend to agree with you. To be honest, I tend to believe that most likely he died. And from what I saw, my theory, if it means anything to you, is that it was somebody that he knew. Somebody came over, he cracked 2 beers for them. They were hanging out in the apartment. Maybe he owed them money. Maybe he was buying drugs off of them.
It could have been any sort of situation.
Well, there was some history with drug use and abuse and Rosalio's legal history and some potential paraphernalia in some of the pictures shown on some of his tables. So in this situation, either of those is possible, right? He invited someone over. Maybe hypothetically, it was one of the guys that he said that he knew that was going to go break my brother's legs, right? That was in testimony. He texted Sadie and he told her to delete the text messages regarding, I know some people. I'll make the phone call. And she said, Poppy, no snitch. Right. So you have this situation where maybe he called somebody and maybe they came over, this old friend of his that's a leg breaker, and they didn't like him making this phone call. Maybe it was a consequence to that. Either way, it was somebody that he knew that he invited in, and he offered them a beer. They talked. Maybe the conversation didn't go like he thought it was. Maybe he owed them money. Maybe they got into an argument, and he asked them to leave. He opens the door. The brand new baseball bat is sitting right there. The guy takes the baseball bat, hits him in the head, grabs him, throws him on the couch, pulls the money out of his wallet, takes the phone to prevent him from calling for help, thinking that he's still going to live, not understanding the grievous injury that he's caused. Takes the cash out, the remainder of the cash that Rosalia had taken out of his bank account that his mother had given him. That goes through the credit cards, realizes that he had the credit cards still in his fingers with the phone, throws the credit cards with the phone in the freezer, leaves. Someone comes back the following day to check on Rosalio, someone related to this, someone that might have been the middleman in this conversation. They find that Rosalio has expired, that he had gotten up in his confusion. He was bleeding out of his head. He grabs the door handle. He loses consciousness. He falls backwards. He's spitting blood because it's a head wound. The blood is in his mouth. The spray is going all over this table that's next to his head. And he dies. Then what do? You're the middleman. You're the guy that set up this meeting. There are people that are in Rosalia's friend group that had gang affiliations, that had Facebook posts where they were talking about people getting theirs and things like that. There's issues in Kenosha that are a little bit bigger than this one case that some of his friends group are connected to. It's important to recognize that organized criminal activity is way more likely the culprit than my brother deciding on a whim when he's trying to fight for his children, to drive all the way down in a fit of jealousy, not knowing who's going to be at the house, by the way. He has no idea who's going to be there, if he's going to be alone, and deciding to blitz him in the doorway. That doesn't make sense. He doesn't know if someone's going to be coming over. None of that. And it turns out Narita was supposed to be there. Was she? Because her testimony was also not compelling in its truth. So we have a bunch of other more likely situations that were not investigated to their fullest extent that should raise questions to everyone watching this trial. We have a family court trial wrapped up into a homicide. They had more evidence to try and bring against my brother in regard to the family court issues than they did about the homicide specifically. And what they asked the jury to do is to make a logical leap from a man who's fighting for his children, a man who's allegedly stalking, to him guaranteeing that he committed murder with no evidence of a murder ever taking place with my brother's involvement. No marks on his body, nothing like that. He didn't have a scratch. He had one tiny little cut on the tip of his finger that was healing. He had no bruising, no contusions, no broken bones, no cuts, no sign of a struggle, nothing on his body. So that includes like even knocking himself around trying to pick up a 300-pound weight. Nothing. The path forward cannot argue the evidence in the appellate court. This is a problem because the evidence was misrepresented. The public was misled by the lies and the mistruths. We have a problem now where we go to the appellate court. We argue the execution of the law. How it was
there has to be something that was done inappropriately during the court that
exactly
would have impacted the verdict enough to say we deserve a redo, where all this evidence can now be back on the table. It can be presented differently. It can be questioned differently. The whole theory of defense can be different in the next trial if he gets an appeal. But you first have to get over that hurdle, because as compelling as all that information is, it's water under the bridge as far as the appellate court is concerned.
That's true. It's absolutely irrelevant to the appellate court unless it's exculpatory. So if there's new evidence that's brought to the trial or to the appellate court that is specifically exculpatory,
like if Rosalio showed up alive, that would definitely,
or if they find his deceased body with evidence that would indicate something else other than what was presented to the court, then it might actually reopen the trial. So in this situation, the appellate court must be argued the execution of the law. Michael Gravely mouthing testimony at the same time as witnesses giving testimony on more than one occasion is questionable. Will the appellate court take it? That's a big question. Prosecutorial misconduct is very important. I think that some of the rulings made by the judge are going to be under extreme scrutiny. I don't know that the appellate court is going to care, that he didn't allow me to speak on my brother's behalf. There is one interpretation that the victim statements are part of the Sixth Amendment right, and the question is it the judge's or the appellate court's interpretation? Who is going to interpret the fact that our family is affected by this just as much as their family is affected by this? Why is my voice suppressed when they're allowed to speak about his guilt and ask for life? Why isn't this a situation where every individual is supposed to be taken into their fullest I'm searching for the word, the fullest view of whom they are to the court in deciding what their sentence is supposed to be, because it didn't happen in this case. That's the reality, is that Schroeder very specifically alienated anyone from speaking on his behalf, very specifically because he didn't care. And that is judicial bias.
Is there any, he said when he did that, he said, I can't recall ever letting.
Also not true. I think that, if some of my followers were able to comment, I think they could throw out some links to some situations. There was a murder trial where a father's two sons were allowed to speak on his behalf just a couple of years ago, that Schroeder was the judge for, and it's just very important that a judge does respect the accused, respect at that point convicted person, and consider them as an individual, that not everybody that commits a crime is the same, and that you should take into account who they are, what level of good they contribute to society, to their families, and
The
to
entire
everyone else.
circumstance of the situation, not just
Right, and that's outlined in the Sixth Amendment. This idea that we are entitled to that individualized sentence. That this is not just a blanket statement, and I don't think that the judge fulfilled that obligation.
Going way back to the very beginning, when the family first heard which judge would be handling this case, without going into the Kyle Rittenhouse situation and the politics behind that, were you guys optimistic? At what point were you like, this is another hurdle that we hadn't expected? We hoped we would have a more fair fight in this one.
A little bit yes and no. I think that it was good because we understood that there might be more exposure, and because we knew that that this was a dirty game being played by the DA's office in Kenosha, that it might give my brother's case a little bit more attention, especially coming off of the tales of Rittenhouse. But I wouldn't say like positive. I was actually trepidatious about it. I wasn't sure that it was going to go well. But the reality is that there were no other judges that could try the case. So all the other judges had a personal connection to witnesses or victims, and they had to recuse themselves. This included the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice for the court had specifically said that he had to recuse himself from making decisions, and then denied my brother the habeas corpus motion and the change of venue motion, which is problematic.
If they all had to recuse themselves, who would be on a appellate bench? Would it be those same judges? Would it go somewhere else?
It goes somewhere else. It goes to it goes to the state appellate court. So it goes to the next tier of court.
It doesn't have to make it through Schroeder first before it goes to them, right?
Yeah. That's why there's districts, right? So it's like this is the third district court 3 or branch 3, district court 2, branch 3, or whatever it is. So this is one district of the state's court system. They could have taken it to another district where a bunch of the victims were not connected, or potentially the jurors. And one of the jurors had actually said that they knew one of the witnesses. They were related to their husbands or something like that.
Yeah.
So in this situation, I don't know that juror recused themselves because only one juror recused himself, and to my understanding, one of the jurors was removed from having the flu. So when they came down to flu-like symptoms, they were recused so they didn't spread COVID through the jury. And so this other juror was allowed to remain on the panel, which is a tainted panel. This is a problem. Again, another problem with having a fair trial. It just was never there. So we have a situation where this is an argument for the appellate court. It's a totally separate court. We had an argument before it even went to trial, to remove it from this district court, which was denied. This is going to be an appellate issue on whether or not they violated my brother's rights.
Are each of these appellate issues, are they handled separately, or is this, you wrap them all up into one big 30-page document and say, for all these reasons, we deserve a second shot?
Yeah, you have to wrap it all up with a nice tight little bow. You have to try and make it concise. You have a limited amount of document space to make your argument against the state for violating your rights, or for inappropriate trial court decisions, and then you have to submit that to the appellate court, and that can be done with state appointed representation or with a hired representation. Unfortunately, it's highly cost prohibitive. So we have a situation where Zach's legal team offered to represent him during the appellate issue, but then they asked for up to $200,000 to do it. This is something that is highly cost prohibitive, and that doesn't count experts and further investigations and everything else that they would bring in to find exculpatory evidence. Jury panel investigations or anything like that. This is
it's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
That's a ton of money. We were impressed with Nicole, with her, how quick she is, how easy she's able to on the fly make an argument for something she didn't know she was going to be arguing for. I think as far as the quality of lawyers, even though she's a very young lawyer, amazing, but not necessarily the same lawyer that you would want writing your appeal. That if she doesn't have a lot of experience there. So before I go into this a little bit, I do want to apologize. You mentioned briefly that if your followers had been able to chat, I did change a setting on this live stream so that only subscribers who had been with us at least a day could talk. I did that thinking that would keep the trolls out, because we wanted to treat with respect. I did not in any way mean to limit your followers who might be here for the first time, who aren't with us, from speaking. So I do apologize for that. That was not my intent. I hope that you are able to convey anything you feel that is pertinent to this during the discussion. I did not mean to stifle chat for that in that way. So my apologies.
I mean, an unintended consequence, but a consequence nonetheless. I just wanted to just briefly scan some of the comments that people were making, because I asked them to drop messages in a group chat just to make sure that there was.
If there's anything you'd like to bring up, we'd like to do. I have a few more questions myself. I don't know how much time you have. I know you've got a new baby at home, and I don't want to take you away from
my
congratulations, by the way.
Hey, thank you. I mean, I call her my wife. We're technically not married, but she's my wife in my brain. So my wife has baby duty right now. So I'm forever grateful for the fact that she is so willing to let me do these things, to speak on my brother's behalf. She wholeheartedly, campaigns for his innocence. She knows how much this means to my whole family. It means a lot to her too. This is a situation where our whole family is extremely adversely affected by this. And like I said in my impact statement, I really believe that the Gutierrez family deserves justice, but the reality is that they don't get justice by convicting my brother. This is a big problem. You don't convict an innocent man and get justice out of that. You find the person that did it. That person belongs in prison, not an innocent man that was just effectively they call it not circus court, but the kangaroo court. Yeah, that it was kangaroo courted into a guilty verdict. This was not a well presented trial. This was not a fair trial by any means, and unfortunately, they were lied to by the DA's office, and the mainstream media was lied to by the DA's office too. And this is important. As citizens, we should all recognize that the violation of my brother's constitutional rights, if this case becomes precedential, this is dangerous for everyone.
Yes, this is something I tried to get in at the beginning. My desire for justice, if we don't fight for justice for someone else, we're losing justice for ourselves. But the territory, it has to be defended on every front, even in situations where, like I've told you, that I feel that the jury got it right. I still believe if the process was wrong, we need to fix the process, and this process has to be done in a fair way where all the facts are weighed, and then the outcome determined. If the jury next time, even while I stand today where I still think the jury got it right, if the process was wrong, I believe he deserves an appeal. I believe that appeal should be granted. He gets a new trial, and if in that next trial he has found, the jury says, hey, we can't convict, there's not enough evidence to convict, there's reasonable doubt, I would rather have that outcome than have one where I feel that he's guilty, but the process that got us there was wrong. That's where I'm right here. I can tell that that the impact of this family on your family, this has been tremendous. I was going to ask you questions about that, but I can hear it in your voice. I can see it in your eyes. This is something that most of us have not had to deal with in any way, shape, or form, and it's your everyday moving forward. I put a couple links in the description on this video. that I think would be appropriate to share if somebody has listened to you and says, you know what, I agree, and I'd like to do something about it. The first link is you've got, obviously in your name, you've got the Free Zachariah Anderson hashtag, which brings awareness through social media. Anytime you're talking about this in social media, just using that hashtag would allow other people to find the discussion and continue the conversation a little bit. And I think that's something that you're seeking for. There's also a Facebook group, which I've got a link on the description for. And then you mentioned the cost of an appeal. And this isn't, I'm not belittling public defenders, but this isn't something you want to trust to whoever's next name is on the list. Whoever comes up that's working for the smallest amount the state can get away with paying them to handle the issue. I imagine this is something you're going to want, your family's going to want to hire a capable attorney to handle and move forward with. And there's a significant cost involved, and so there is a fundraising effort. You want to talk a little bit about that fundraising effort?
So we have our Give Send Go set up to raise money for paying for the court transcripts, because we need to order court transcripts. Those are very important for being able to write the appeal, exactly the verbiage of what was stated in the courtroom, all the way through to scrutinize and have it be admissible in court. So that would include all of the hearings prior to the actual trial, the whole trial, and even the family court case that was in, I think it was June of 2020, if I remember correctly. So all of those court transcripts where there was relevant information discussed with this case need to be ordered from all the stenographers, all of the court scribes. So all of that costs money. It's a certain number of dollars per page, and then they go through and they have to actually write it all out. And this is a 15-day trial, so all of those statements, everything needs to be all wrapped up. So this is a very expensive endeavor. So all of that needs to be paid for. We need to pay for private detectives to try and reopen this case, because the police didn't do their job. The police did not fulfill their obligation to investigate this crime, and so we're looking at private investigators to be able to find exculpatory evidence, things relevant to the appeal, things that would then exonerate my brother. Now, on that note, a lot of people have made comments about how my brother should have proven his innocence. And I don't know how many people in the chat here, have said that. I wasn't really paying attention, but I've seen that pretty consistently, especially by the trolls, that they should have made a better case for his innocence. But the reality is that he was always innocent, right? That's how the presumption of innocence works, is that he was always innocent. And I implore people to then prove to me why he's guilty. Prove to me why you think he's guilty. Please do, because I believe he's innocent, and that's how it's supposed to work, right? You're supposed to come in with the bias that the person accused is innocent. You take the evidence presented and prove it. You believe that he's guilty. You believe that the evidence was presented was compelling enough. Now prove to me that it's true, because it's not there. You don't have a leg to stand on. You're not going to be able to do it. That's the presumption of innocence. Does that make sense? So
yeah, I feel I need to go back. You've challenged me on some points that I based my decision on, and I have to go back and re-listen to the evidence and say, let me make sure I heard that the way I thought I heard it, and not just the way I wanted to hear it, or look at it in the light of the testimony and weigh the things myself. I haven't changed positions, but I definitely want to go back and listen. I want to listen more about that DNA. I want to listen more about the evidence that specifically how Rosalio's DNA could have been there through touch DNA, through different occurrences or time frames. Obviously, the time frame you brought up about the facts of the case, in my recollection, there was never really a timeline type situation that we saw, like with Alex Murdaugh's trial, where they said, here's how it happened step by step in the timeline, and in this many minutes, this is when this occurred. I didn't pay enough attention to that, and the way you spell it out, that causes me to have some doubt. Somebody that suddenly just decides to commit murder and manages to do it perfectly without leaving any DNA and cleans up the whole crime scene, gets out of there with never being seen or spotted cameras, things like that. That's something I have to go back and look at. So I appreciate that. Appreciate doing that.
So I'll cycle back to the
Yeah.
give send go. All of those costs are extremely expensive. So the experts that we have to hire, the potential retesting of DNA evidence, the potential of hiring the investigators, the court transcripts, all of these things. We've raised, I think, a little over $12,000 in so far, but that's a legitimate drop in the bucket. We need as much financial support as we can garner. If you've been compelled by this, if you believe in my brother's innocence, please come give. If you're not able to give, I understand. You don't have to. Spread the word. You can. There's a bunch of news media out there. MLS Law Show just did a brief breakdown. It's about a half hour long of the closing arguments of Michael Gravely, where he actually calls into question quite a bit of what Gravely claimed in his closing argument. I implore you all, everyone, believe me or not, to watch that, because it's testimony by people during the trial that are refuting his claims. It is the exact opposite. So the closing argument is an opined thing by the state. However, it is supposed to be based on fact. So in that closing argument, he then does not represent facts presented in the case. And I believe that the jury, that the layperson listening, was so befuddled and confused by how the evidence was presented, that they just took the closing argument as fact and they ran with that. But go ahead and break it down. There's a couple of clips from, like, Steve Gosney talking about the DNA evidence and some summaries that David wrote, because Gravely spoke for 90 minutes, and if you're going to break down 90 minutes with all the cutscenes, it's a 3-hour clip, right? Because you have to cut to all the evidence that was presented. During that video, there is actually it clips to Lisa Treffinger talking about the evidence that I cited. So by all means, it's a half hour of your time. Go watch that video. Nicholas Starro has done some summary videos and some other videos that discuss refuting the state's timeline and some of the evidence in the case as well. He's done an excellent job. If you're looking for summaries of the case, those two gentlemen, both are lawyers, both have done some work looking at this. I haven't met a single lawyer that looked at this case, that watched the case, that believed that they got it right. Not a single lawyer did. And that's an important distinction for the layperson to recognize, is that the professionals, the people that practice the law, are watching this case and going, nope, that is not how this works. So by all means, if you start to break down what the lawyers are presenting, you'll start to understand from the legalese perspective where they're coming from and why this is wrong. We have the bonfire, to buy shirts. If you are interested in supporting us, this also goes to Zach. We have the free Zachariah Anderson T-shirts.
All right
there. With the "I love you" sign. This was a story that came from my brother. It was how he signed to his children. Now that came up in court. Somebody had mentioned the lips, in the courtroom, in the chat that I saw earlier. It's a very important thing, because a lot of people were convinced that he was trying to stifle my niece's testimony, but that's not the truth. I was sitting in the courtroom at the time, and my niece kept mouthing to him. She kept trying to speak to him directly, like just mouthing words, not vocalizing. So in between questions, during those silences, she's trying to speak to him. When she walked up and sat down, the first thing she did was try to communicate to him directly at the defendant's table. And through that, my brother had nudged and tried to get his attorneys to say something about it, to make it stop during the testimony. But nobody was saying anything to her about it. It was a problem. As it turns out, then he was doing a dad reaction and said, please stop mouthing at me. Still your lips. Just stop doing that. He didn't try to interfere with the testimony. Clearly, she was able to say whatever she wanted on the stand. That's not how this worked at all. On the flip side of that, I was sitting in the gallery, and I watched as some of Sadie's family were signing "calm down" and mouthing "calm down" during one of her outbursts. which is also communicating to the witness, which the judge cautioned us about, prior to her taking the stand, that it was very important that we maintain total stillness, that we're not part of the trial in the gallery. That was very important to Schroeder, and I respected him and maintained my stillness as much as I humanly could. In this situation, Sadie is ASL fluent. She turned around and was talking to a friend of hers behind and was signing above the level of the bench as she turned around. My niece is familiar, maybe not fluent, but familiar with ASL. She was raised as a little girl to learn to ask for milk for mom and dad and mom, to ask for dad and mom, would say thank you, would communicate with rough sign from when she was in diapers before she was vocal. That was done because Sadie had a degree in deaf studies. This whole situation was two parents trying to convince their daughter, stop their daughter from misbehaving in a situation of high stress. She was acting out. She was doing things that were inappropriate. She's still 14. She was 14 at the time of this testimony. Of course, she's acting out. She's completely emotionally distraught over the situation, and in general has a hard time maintaining, control over herself. It's part of the age, it's part of the development, and part of the consequence of the emotional damage caused by this trial and by effectively alienating her with her mother and D.A. Gravely. There was no one else that could speak with her about this and discuss what was going on. And then you have a situation where she's got to go home to Sadie after this. How is she going to not represent Sadie's viewpoint if she's got to go home with Sadie afterwards? There's no way. I care about my nephews and my niece, and they've been stuck in an awful situation, losing their father. It is a really bad situation, and there's nothing that we can do about it. Sadie's got custody.
Are there any comments, as going back to me alienating your followers who may have been joining us today? Are there any comments that they've sent you, or things that you would like to bring up, or questions that they'd like you to present? I don't want them to feel that in any way their voice was stifled, even though it was what happened based on my decision. I hadn't thought that through.
There's
I'd
a
love
lot
to,
of comments, so I'd love to take a little bit of
give
time
you the
to roll
time
through.
to think about that. I mean, look, I've ignored my followers' questions as well, and I apologize to them. Let me see if I can see. A lot of things you've covered very eloquently already. Let's see.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm very passionate about the situation. It's a gross injustice for my entire family. So I understand that. Like, I get really animated. That's not aggression towards you. I hope you understand.
No, I don't feel it at all. I appreciate it. I think you're a credit to your brother. Any family member would be well served having you as a brother to defend them. I think the passion you've shown is just incredible. The diligence in seeking out the information and pushing for the truth as you see it is incredible and good, and I commend you for it.
One comment, my group wanted me to bring up the diffuser. And I'm sure that you don't have a lot of the links at the ready, but there's a picture of the crime scene, and there's a diffuser on the table right next to the door. When you walk in the door into the apartment, there's the kitchen behind the swing of the door to the left, right? And then there's a short section of wall, and then there's the dinette just past that section of wall around the corner, right?
Okay.
So in front of that short section of wall, there's a little table. On that table, there's like a drawing. There's a bunch of random things in a little dish, and there's a little wooden diffuser, a vaporizer diffuser. During the crime scene photos, some of our followers had pointed out, and rightfully, that the diffuser is still running. Now the photos were taken, some are noon, 1 o'clock, some are in that range.
It's still putting out
on May the
mist.
19th, and it's still misting at that time. And from what we've found, the longest run time for the diffuser is about 18 hours, give or take. Furthermore, in the pictures, looking up the models from this maker, both lights are on the diffuser, which means that it was running on high. So it was in high mode. So it would not have been running at the longest possible duration. Between the alleged time of disappearance and the alleged time that that Rosario would have last been able to fill this diffuser, which is roughly 9 p.m. on the night of the 17th,
It would have run dry
to noon 1 p.m. on the 19th, that is about 40 hours. 40 hours of time, and this diffuser is still running. It's really, really important to scrutinize every aspect of this. Even if he were to overfill it on high, I do not believe that there is a diffuser out there that would last for 40 hours, which then points to the possibility that the corroborative story by the neighbor that claimed that they heard an argument in the apartment on the 18th, the anonymous tip that there was a woman on the patio that asked for the time at 4:21 p.m. on the 18th. The diffuser still running, hypothetically refilled, which actually points to more along this the hypothetical story that I told. Someone came back on the 18th and said, "Oh no," and he had expired, and then cleaned up, and then lit the diffuser, filled the diffuser to cover up any scent that might be in there, opened up the patio doors to air it out, right? Because that matters too. The patio doors are open. It wasn't in a closed environment, and this diffuser is still running. So we have a situation where on the stand, maybe Sadie misspoke, but she said that it looked different than the day before when she was last there. Those were her words on the stand. It's very important to scrutinize every little piece of information. I don't know that Sadie was there on the 18th. I frankly don't know. What she testified to was that it looked different than the day before. It's possible that she misspoke and she was thinking about the 16th. I'm not saying that it's not, but the reality is that she said the day before. So we have multiple pieces of information that actually state that something happened on the 18th and it didn't happen on the 17th. My brother's alibi on the 18th is rock solid. He was never there. He went to work. He was at Walmart. He went to pick up his taxes. He spent the rest of the afternoon with Christine. If it did happen, or if the disposal happened on the 18th, it was absolutely unequivocally not by my brother. There was no question.
Well, is this? I've heard that there was new evidence. Is the diffuser in that category? That new evidence that's sort of
It's
come to
not
light?
technically new. It was in the crime scene photos.
But was
So
it? Had it been analyzed? When? Who was the first to discover it? Was this after?
I was told by Zach that his defense team had looked at the diffuser and it was discussed, but it wasn't brought up in trial. But I don't know how it was tested. And the reality is, like I said, I don't know that they had it in low mode or high mode when they tested it. But it had both lights on, meaning that it was in high, which meant that if they did do a long test and it ran for 30 hours when it was overfilled, then it shouldn't have been on the long setting. It was definitely on the high setting. So this is a major issue that specifically it points to my brother's innocence. So for all of you out there that are looking at this, I challenge you to please go dig up more information. This is the reality. This is evidence. This is evidentiary in nature. What I'm talking about is the timeline presented by the DA, how it doesn't work. The DNA evidence presented, how there's other explanations. This is not just spinning an imagination. This is the evidence as discussed in the trial. This is not me being out of my mind, not having a leg to stand on, just trying to spew forth some sort of argument on my brother's behalf. This is not an emotional appeal for my brother's behalf. It's not an emotional appeal, but the reality is that the evidence didn't show that he committed this crime. It's not there. They got it wrong.
Let me ask a question. I've heard it brought up on a couple different times you've been interviewed, but it's sort of unique to us because there was a point during the trial that the judge played our live stream in court. I don't know what you think of YouTubers, the whole law tube in general, or anything like that. What was your, or what is your opinion on that whole occurrence, both on the Friday where we heard the audio from the live stream as the jury's returning to the courtroom, and on Monday as he may have indicated, arguably, that he was still watching or still paying attention to the live stream?
Yeah, the evidence, the scratch the nose moment. I think that it's unethical. It's not illegal, but it's unethical. If a judge is on the bench and is paying attention to the live stream, that means that he's not paying attention to what's happening in the courtroom and not doing his diligence and not giving my brother justice. What he's supposed to be there for is he's supposed to be the gatekeeper. He's supposed to be the parent in the room between two bickering, lawyers as the children about an argument. He's supposed to weigh the viability of evidence. He's supposed to maintain impartiality in the case. He's supposed to make sure that evidence is presented to the jury that doesn't sway their minds, that's not intentional. And unfortunately, he just didn't maintain control of his courtroom, and that may have been part of the issue with watching the live stream. He did this thing where he was watching what the public opinion was of his live stream. He was more concerned with his notoriety on the internet than he was about the fate of my brother's life and weighing his innocence and presenting it fairly to the jury. That is abhorrent to me. That is a man that should have been removed as a judge for this case based on that. And now, like I said, it is unethical, not illegal. And the path forward, should we be considering this as a real problem in our system, I think the right thing to do is to live stream court cases. It keeps prosecutors and witnesses, it keeps people accountable for what they're doing in the courtroom. It is important that we all have access to the legal system in this aspect. It is, however, an unfortunate side effect that then the jury has access to more social media, more ability to look at things and look at public opinion about it. But that means that we probably need to sit down and have more strict jury instruction about the definition of the presumption of innocence and what they're really weighing, what needs to be discussed, and how the presumption of innocence works. We need to be able to take the time to do that after jury selection is complete, so the jury understands their ethical, their moral obligation to our society in weighing evidence, right? And then we also need to be able to pass legislation that limits people that are in positions of power in the courtroom from doing things like this, watching these live streams. Because if you're supposed to be paying attention to the courtroom and you're divided between the social media aspect of this in watching the live streams of the breakdown of a trial and the live trial, then you're not giving it your full attention. Your integrity is it should be called into question. This is important for us as a society to understand, to get behind, and to hold our elected officials accountable. We have to do that. Schroeder is a judge. I believe he's an elected official in Kenosha. Michael Gravely is an elected official in the Kenosha area. Both of those men should be removed from their position, both for unethical practice. What they did was wrong. They don't represent your community. I believe in Kenosha being a better community than what they represented in their justice system. I believe that there are very good, honest, hardworking police officers in the Kenosha Police Department that do their job to the fullest extent that they are allowed to do and treat their community with respect. I don't believe that the detectives in my brother's case did a good job. I believe that they missed the ball. Not everyone can do their job to the best on every single circumstance, and I think that they dropped the ball in my brother's case.
I don't know how much you've been able to talk to your brother since the sentence. Is there any regret on his part for not taking the stand?
That's a good question. I don't know that he does. We talked about it a little bit before, and he was kind of adamant about it. But it comes down to the theory of reasonable doubt, right? What was done in the courtroom was D.A. Gravely was allowed to present to the jury that my brother chose to not present his innocence, that he had the opportunity and he chose not to, and that meant he was guilty.
That was a sign of his guilt. Yeah, which is
and
wrong,
that is wrong. Wrong. That is unethical, and it violates my brother's constitutional right. So the fact that was done skewed the jury to believing this to be a truth. That unfortunately might be the only regret, because as he said, and when during sentencing, he said, "Judge, I'm innocent, not guilty. This isn't a technicality. I'm innocent. I did not commit this." And that's a jagged pill to swallow. And I sincerely hope the jury was watching to see him make those statements. This jury deliberated for like 10 hours. And I'm not sure, nobody has made a statement about why they came to the decision that they did. But I would like to hear why. I want to know why that they really thought that they could make the jump from presenting this family court issue, which they even said that most of the recorded conversations that you even cited yourself were arguments about the children. This is specifically about the children. This is not talking about, this is not like a jealous, obsessed line of conversations that he recorded. He's not baiting conversations about who she's dating, who she's sleeping with, and all these other things. This is not the content of those, right? He did not welcome his daughter up to the window to have her peek in on Sadie having coitus with her new man. That never happened. Some people, I saw some trolls that made comments about that. That never happened. Let's be very clear about this. This was specifically a folder of conversations about custody issues with the children. This had nothing to do with Gutierrez. Gutierrez was a side note, a man with a criminal history that he was concerned she was bringing around the children. And you can CCAP Mr. Gutierrez and look at the things that he was accused of. He had outstanding child support debt. He had bail jumping. He had a bunch of other things. He is not an innocent man of all things either. Do I believe that he's a bad man? No, I'm not accusing him of being this felonious, nefarious man that was there to taint, my brother's children or Sadie's children, but there's a reasonable call to question of a man's character that she's bringing around their children in a family court situation. That's relevant. And to understand that, maybe he had a few photos taken off of social media. He never had photos of Mr. Gutierrez that he took in person. Those never existed. Pulling photos off of social media is something that people do all the time. Matter of factly, even when you're internet dating, you can CCAP people, and when Jen and I met, my wife and I met, she did the same to me. She CCAP'd me. She looked at my history to make sure that I wasn't a bad guy. That's a reasonable adult thing to do. So, in this situation, does he regret not taking the stand? Yes and no. My last conversation with him, he was not passionate one way or the other. My words to him were my grandfather's words. My grandfather had said during one family holiday, he said it's better to remain silent and let everyone think you're an idiot than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
That's something I do every day. I open my mouth and remove all doubt. Solomon, thank you. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate you being willing to, in the face of me saying I don't agree with you, coming on. Thanks for challenging my opinions, challenging my convictions. I guess my conclusions would be a better term. Challenging my conclusions. I've enjoyed talking to you. I think that there are many people in chat. I know chat's sort of been on both sides. I apologize to the mods. This is a hot topic, and I think that's a good thing. It's a topic that we need to have. And sorry, my phone's going in the background here.
I hear it.
Nice. They hung up at just the right time, so now I get dial tone for 5 seconds. Okay. It's a good discussion. I'm going to go back and look at some of the things that I I based my conclusion on, based on what you've told me. I want to make sure I'm solid where I am. But I appreciate you. I appreciate your community. Please give them my apologies. I did not intend to exclude them. I thought we would exclude the trolls. I didn't realize you would bring a fan base here. But I appreciate them coming and watching. Definitely, and I apologize to them through you for not allowing them to speak. Hopefully, you're able to convey. If there's anything else you'd like to convey, I'd give you ample time to do that if you'd like.
Did you want to bring in any of the super chats that people had paid for?
That.
We've got like 17 loaded here.
Let me go through them really quickly. A couple of them are older. Let's see. Some of them are just cheering me on, saying I was going to do great, because I get nervous. I'm so nervous during these interviews. We decided we're not going to talk about your brother's hairstyle with the man bun. That was something that we brought up. We've seen it in other trials that it seems to be an interesting style. I personally believe it was a show of respect to pull your hair back to court, but
I had spoken with him about that actually after after the first day. I said, why didn't you get a haircut? He said that he didn't trust the jail barbers, that they were going to give him a bad haircut. That he described it as getting a haircut from a dog groomer, and he didn't want to show up looking that bad.
Be careful. We have some dog groomers in chat.
I'm not saying that dog groomers aren't good at trimming dogs, but the reality is that a human head is a little different than a dog's body. So I'm not disparaging dog groomers. Just please understand that if you have dog groomers in chat, that's not the point of that comment. Yeah. But he's for a couple years, the first couple years of my niece's life, he actually grew his hair out until she cut her own bangs with scissors, and then they went and got a haircut together. But he grew his own hair out specifically so her first haircut was not scary. So he actually had like a ponytail man bun for years, back in the day. And then he shaved his head down. It was very clean cut after that.
Yeah. I'm rapidly going through these questions and I'm reading. Some of them we've addressed the issues a little bit, so I do apologize to the super chatters who came through. I think we showed this one. I caught that one as it came in. Thank you, New Bunk Foss, for that. About the burnt clothes, Zach didn't have a washer dryer. He was doing laundry at Sadie's, so if he spilled chemicals on himself working on the 18th, it's not weird to just burn them.
Yeah, that was also mentioned in the trial. There was a comment made because Zach was doing his laundry actively at Sadie's house throughout this whole time. So when people are alleging this stalking event, he was welcome to go over to her house and do his laundry. So the fact that he was in her house at any given moment was not a shock.
Yeah. Let's see. There's no DNA. I'm sorry, but y'all scare me. Flux, thank you very much. My opinions have been challenged. I'm going to go back and look at those. I appreciate that. Jen RN says, Free Zach and justice for Rosalio are not mutually exclusive. No one is victim blaming by calling into question some things in his life or Sadie's. RG deserves unyielding advocacy for finding him. We are those people. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate that. Could the Innocent Project help? Says Linda Hill. Is that something you've reached out to?
So Zach has to reach out to them specifically on his own. That's a very important thing. And I believe that he's filed some paperwork with them, but he has to be denied his first appeal before they take on the project. So we've reached out to Kathleen Zellner, the lawyer that handled the Stephen Avery case on the Making a Murderer, which had some scary similarities with the police putting their blinders on and then planting evidence and doing things like that. I want to point out that during her investigation of Stephen Avery, she actually uncovered a bunch of issues with the state crime lab, calling into question the same state crime lab that tested my brother's evidence. So I'm not disparaging any one of those individual witnesses. I don't know what they had to do with the Stephen Avery case, but the reality is that crime lab has a history of problems. So we take for granted that the crime lab, we think, just gets it right every time. Yeah. But there's scientific error. There's error that can be made, and frankly, we don't know that they didn't have cross contamination in that pinhead-sized spot of DNA in the back of the van that caused it to test positive for Mr. Gutierrez. We don't know, and we can't retest it because it was destroyed in the processing. So in this very convenient situation, it cannot be retested to verify that it was Mr. Gutierrez, and that's the one shot that they had. So was it contaminated? We'll never know, and we can never verify that it wasn't.
I appreciate you. I'll just say thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate hearing this. This is stuff that I had not heard. You obviously have a perspective and information that is not publicly available. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on here and do this. I appreciate all of that, all your followers. The moving forward with the appeal, obviously it takes time. I'm not even sure how long it takes for the transcripts to become available, if they are. We know in Murdaugh's case, it took 6 months for all the transcripts, and they're still waiting for that.
Yeah, that's about what we're looking at least 6 months for that to come through for the trial transcripts. And we won't know the cost until much later on, because like I said, they do it by page. So we'll know after all of this, when they finally compile it, what the cost is going to be. So yes, it'll take a bunch of time for 15 days of trial. We were also denied a Freedom of Information Act request from the Kenosha PD. So again, consider the volume of issues that we have with this. One of our supporters asked the Kenosha PD for the body cam footage, for the interrogation footage, for the 911 calls, and a few other things related to my brother's case. They denied everything except the 911 call. Absolutely everything. And they said that we could appeal it with the district attorney or with the attorney general of Wisconsin. So they denied a Freedom of Information request and then said, well, we think that it might adversely affect Celia Patterson, so we're not going to release it.
Wow. That raises my hackles. I constantly am trying to get access to documents, and anytime they say no, I like to think why, but man, that's frustrating. It's frustrating. So you're gonna
about
have to
8 years ago, there was a case against the Kenosha PD where they tampered with evidence, and there was a cop that came forward and admitted to doing it, and he left the force in Kenosha PD, but they colluded with the district attorney at the time to process the evidence and get it into the courtroom to convict someone. So this is the one of the guys that trained Gravely was the guy that did this. That was the district attorney at the time.
And this is all going to be wrapped up in that limited space appeal. That I guess sometime next year. Is that the idea, that it would be filed?
It could be filed in the next. I mean, they probably already filed some paperwork with the intent of appeal.
The notice of appeal, yeah.
Yeah, but then sometime, like, he might have to wait 9 months to get a lawyer. They have to go through everything sometime in the next year, and then it'll be another 1.5 2 years before they actually are seen before they have a hearing in the appellate court. So this guarantees effectively my brother getting a 3-year prison sentence for something that he's innocent of. Right? That's not justice, by the way. Justice would have been, the trial court sticking to facts, not bending the truth, not misrepresenting it. The trial court was supposed to present the evidence to convince the jury, not to manipulate. This isn't a game. They ruined a man's life for the sake of winning a case, to maybe, save the Kenosha PD of the embarrassment of doing such a poor job in corroborating with, 15 total law enforcement agencies and still only finding one pinhead-sized spot that connected my brother to the crime. Never finding a body, never finding any evidence of a body, never finding any evidence of my brother handling the body. Nothing. That was it.
Solomon, you're a good man. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sharing all of that with us and taking your time away from your family, especially your newborn. Congratulations to you and your wife on that. I'd love to talk again if the opportunity presents itself. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, if you go through and you start to break down and you have some questions, throw me a text. Let me know. Like I said, I implore everyone out there to go back to the trial, to review what was said. Everyone that really, really thinks that he's guilty, go back, listen to what I have to say. Look at the trial. think about it critically. There's alternate situations. There's alternate theory as to what happens. You said that it left a vacuum around, that the only answer was guilt. I disagree. There's not a vacuum of evidence that the only answer is guilt. There's a vacuum of evidence because there's no evidence. There's a vacuum there because they didn't have a case, and they made up a case based on very, very little information. They used his family court information against him. Yeah. That's it.
Once again, if anyone would like to join with the family with this cause, I think the Facebook page is probably, you can get to everything from there, and that link is found in the description of this live stream. Solomon, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you all of you out there that heeded my words, and all of you that will watch this after we finish the live stream. Thank you for spending the time. Do you mind if I call you by your name? I didn't ask you.
I'm that. Scott. Go
ahead. Scott, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Not everybody with an opposing point of view is welcome or open to having this open of a discussion to really hammer on some of the key facts of the case. And you kind of gave me the warning that you're like, well, my memory is not that good, so I'm not sure how much I'm going to bring back.
Goldfish. It is awful. My lot in life.
So I mean, I understand that your rebuttals are not going to be like, no, what about this detail? I totally get it. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to reach your audience, to reach everyone out there in your chat, that's willing and interested in cases like this. I'll have more interviews coming up. I'll be on another stream tonight at 9 p.m. Central or 10 p.m. Eastern. And that's with Good Logic, and then I'll be doing Viva Fry on Friday at like noon, and then Flux next week Thursday as well. So
when you're done, you're just going to be able to take the bar exam and join the best of them. So you're making the full rounds.
Well, I mean, it's the law specifically surrounding my brother's case. I'm no expert in all of the law, but I've gotten a crash course, that's for sure.
Yeah, and not one that you wanted to take, for sure. So my heart goes out to you and your family. Best of luck to all of you, and to your brother as well. Thank you, Solomon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. All right. Thank you. Solomon was incredible. I appreciate his willingness to come on. I've learned a lot. As I told you, I told you I was going to do a lot of listening, and learning. So I have some things to go back and think about. And Matthew Harris says, if Solomon takes my daily legal pop quiz, he'll be bar ready in no time. That's awesome. That was intense. I appreciate all of you being polite in chat. I didn't follow everything closely. I realized I expected a ton out of my mods, and I'll find out if they are quitting on me any minute now. But I think you guys did great from what I saw. Thank you so much. Not meaning to change anyone's opinion, but I think that it's important to have a format where that can be shared. I will say I don't think that that any of what Solomon said today was victim shaming or victim blaming. I think he spoke specifically on facts as he saw them in court as it was presented, and so I did not feel the need to stop any of the conversation at that point. And I think he was quite respectful in all of it. So big shout out to him, and thank you. Appreciate that. Your face when he went through the timeline, mind blown. Yeah, the timeline reached me a little bit, just a tiny bit. I have to go back and look at that, and I'm a big timeline fan. I love what Brandy does with the timeline. I love what Amber does with the timelines, and hearing that timeline with the hard facts, the times where we know that we can put him in a specific position, and then he has to drive somewhere else in a set amount of time. It narrows the window. Sorry, I got the hiccups all of a sudden. It narrows the window for the crime to be committed to almost an impossible sliver. So I have to go back and look at that as well. That was amazing. Okay, so let's say this. We're trying to see if we've got the footage from Let's see. We're going to see if we can switch over. Hold tight. Where are we at? Let's see. Where's our footage from the Family Feud? I hope it's here. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up this live stream, and what we're going to do instead is switch over to the next one. And I've set it up so that you just have to click the link. If for some reason it doesn't work, my channel will have the next live stream set up. So I'm going to pause for just 1 minute. I'm going to turn off that stinking phone that keeps ringing in the background. I've tried to mute it like 4 times during that interview. It went off. But that was neither here nor there. We're good. Thank you, Keshet. I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate all the help and support you guys gave me as well. Most of the questions I asked were questions that were provided by you, and really insightful as well. All right, pesky phone. So let's. I don't know how to ramp it up here. Let's do this. Let's say, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. So there's the music. Thank you for all of you who joined for this interview. We appreciate all those who shared all their opinions on either side in chat in a respectful way. Thank you very much. We will come back here hopefully with the video from the opening statements from the Family Feud trial here in just a minute. If for some reason you're not able to join us when you come back, please tonight when you go home, hug the people you love, smile at someone, make that day just a little bit better, and please stay safe till we go live again, which will be in moments. It'll be just in moments. I'm going to portal over to the new one in just a second. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you later.